Happy May the 4th, everybody.
May the 4th be with you.
So we've got some special plans throughout May for all of our Star Wars listeners out there. To celebrate the release of the Skywalker saga on Disney Plus and to celebrate May the 4th, we're going to be doing a different trilogy from the Skywalker saga every week.
And each episode, we're going to be joined by a different member of An Earful Podcast. We'll have a different Matt on each week to cover the prequels, the sequels, and the original trilogy.
This first one is the prequel trilogy, and our guest this week is Matt Pearson. Hope you enjoy.
Into the episode.
We're not in my curiosity. Are you telling me you built a time machine?
The Force will be with you.
Welcome back to Get Real, the podcast where we get real about all of our favourite pop culture movies and TV shows. As with me, as always, is my co-host and Padawan, Chris.
Hello, and also with me is the most prequelist member of the An Earful Podcast. We've got Matt with us.
Hello there.
How are you doing, mate?
I'm not bad, how are you?
I'm good. How's the lockdown treating you?
Horrible, but good at the same time. What about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling that. Well, it has freed up plenty of time to watch 3 Star Wars films in one day, I will say.
Yeah, I did that. I forced myself to sit through all 3. As soon as Sam messaged me, sent him a photo, I'm already watching it. Don't worry.
Nice. That's commitment, that.
It was a brutal 6 hours, that. I did it over 2 days, and it was such a struggle. But we got there, and we can make a podcast episode out of it, guys. So, Matt Pearson, because there's 3 Matts in your podcast that we mentioned on our intro, which is getting it will be a bit confusing for listeners, no doubt, but we'll get there.
You'll get it.
Yeah, we're talking all about the prequels. So episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. A very controversial 3 films, some would say. What are your thoughts on the prequels in general, Matt?
Wait, before we get into it, obviously we're starting the episode. Okay, we're done.
Make a quick note to edit 5 seconds of the Star Wars theme that we're allowed to get away with here.
Sam knows what to do. He's ready with the sound effects.
Just, it rips off a score already, doesn't it? King's Island or something.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, so you can just use that one.
Oh, he's dropping in some hot knowledge right now that we weren't aware. What? Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was a Star Wars nerd.
I didn't... Well, it's music, so that's my intro to Star Wars.
Before we talk about the prequels, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt, just for listeners that may not have, checked out your podcast and stuff.
I host a podcast called An Earful Podcast, as you probably heard in the intro. It's about music, horror, and just we talk to people who are creative and we enjoy the work that they do.
Cool.
That's pretty much it.
Sweet. And what do you think of the prequels?
You'll find out. I'm not giving my conclusion first.
Okay, so we take this right to the beginning of the Skywalker saga. Now, we're not doing 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, because that gets a little bit confusing. We're just going to take it from number 1 all the way to number 9. So
Chronological.
So we start off with The Phantom Menace. So
Before we do that, I just want to state for everyone who listens to this, out of all the Matts that are going to come on your podcast, I have the hardest job. I'm defending the prequels. That's got to be known.
Look, Star Wars fans have come a long way since the prequels have came out.
Yeah, everybody hates the sequels now, so you're on equal footing. It's whoever needs to defend Rise of Skywalker who's got a hard job now.
I'll be honest with you, I may badmouth the sequels, but
okay.
there's good reason.
Fight and talk.
Going back to the prequel trilogy really made me realise how much more of a package it is versus the sequels.
It's refreshing to watch because the thing I hated about The Force Awakens, we were watching the same story over again and it just bugged me. A droid has plans and we've got to go find it. Great. It's in that.
Yeah, totally agree. I've made excessive notes on Phantom Menace. So we're going to pretty much work through these 3 films and give our utmost honest opinions and also just things that come to mind and stuff. So have you watched any of the Clone Wars animated show, Matt?
I haven't, and I realised that when I was in the middle of episode 2, I thought I should have caught up here.
No, so don't worry, we're not covering that off because there's about 7 seasons now. We're on season 7 of the Clone Wars, so it's just come back. But I noticed that because I've completely caught up with that, a lot more of the political points that you get in the prequels, where they're talking about the Senate and all that sort of stuff, where when we watched this ages ago, didn't make much sense at the time.
Yeah.
But when you watch it and you've seen this, it's all pretty cool. So.
Yeah, we were kids when these films came out, and like most of that sort of stuff just went over my head. I was like, just get to the laser sword fighting bits.
Exactly. This is why I was happily defending them, is because they were aimed at me growing up.
Yeah.
So this should be easy.
So in The Phantom Menace, our two knights, should we say, we've got Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan straight away.
Yeah.
Anyone got some thoughts on that first unveil at all, or those two characters?
Do you ever play the, I think it was PlayStation 1 Star Wars Episode 1 game?
I think that was the one that I didn't play.
Yeah, no, it would have been a while
It's
ago.
just, I'm jumping a little on the intro here, but when it's smoke everywhere, poison them essentially, expect them to be dead when those droids go in, and you just see the glow of the lightsabers. It gets me so giddy. It still does to this day, because on that PlayStation 1 game, it nails that scene. I abused that game.
Speaking of games, you get a lot of force powers in games, but this is the first time in the film where I've seen force speed used.
Do you know what annoys me about that, though? Jumping to the end of the film, where does the speed run go when they're trying to get through the red laser field?
Yeah, when he's trying to run to catch up with Qui-Gon, where we fight
He's just
him all.
running. You're a Jedi.
Where was your force speed there, Obi-Wan? You could have saved him. Sake.
To excuse Ewan McGregor's performance, he was a Padawan, still learning. Maybe he never thought of it, you know.
He was a much better Padawan than Anakin was.
But he was ready to take the trials. We got told repeatedly he was ready to take the trials.
I think Qui-Gon Jinn is one of the most underrated Jedis in the whole trilogy and sequels and what have you.
I think
he's
it's
definitely
because he's
underplayed.
in the least amount of films.
Well, I noticed this. Rewatching all the prequels, my favourite characters die too soon.
Yeah,
Qui-Gon is definitely one of them.
Yeah, 100%. He's really interesting because as a character, he kind of goes against the council quite a bit, and you get in the other films, so in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, you get that, but it's quite frowned upon.
Yeah.
But in the way that he does it, it's almost like he's setting a good example for Obi-Wan. It's quite, I really like his character.
It's like he holds his morals, isn't it? And
yeah, it's like he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on, doesn't he? He knows the deal. He knows to get what you want and to get things done right, you've got to make choices.
He seems the most level-headed out of all of the Jedi that we see.
Yeah. Plus, he figures out how to talk from the dead. Come on.
Yeah, without being taught it, didn't he? Like, right, so that's in my notes, right?
We're just jumping the gun right here.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Basically, Qui-Gon's a badass. It's all agreed.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement on that.
I didn't notice as well until I watched it this time. You know the pilot at the beginning? It was Brona Gallagher. She was like the druggie in Pulp Fiction, and she's in loads of British comedies and stuff. Like, she always plays like the Irish mum in every British comedy. And I didn't realise it was her until I rewatched it.
I did feel like I recognised her when she turns to the side and speaks. I was a bit like, why does she feel familiar? But
yeah, she's the
she's the one with all the Pearsons, isn't she?
So The Phantom Menace came out in 1999. I didn't realise it was that long ago that it came out. It really holds up, considering, to be fair, in terms of... I know, obviously, it's been remastered and stuff, but in terms of the effects and visuals on it, it looks awesome for 1999.
The only bits that don't really work, I think, are the Gungan battle. The CGI is ropey on that. Like, having an entirely CG character in Jar Jar Binks. Woof. Woof. You got to think they probably filmed it in 97, 98, and then it was released in 99, and they're trying to make a full CG character back then. Woof.
Imagine having to render that.
Yeah.
Be there. Right.
I know they had like a guy on set.
I'm done for the weekend. When I get back, we'll have 5 seconds of Jar Jar Binks.
Imagine they must have had to render like 5 seconds at a time onto a floppy disk. Like,
how does it look?
Isn't it? It's mad. But did you know, Matt? Do you know all about the Ahmed Best stuff with Jar Jar Binks?
Is this that he's secretly a Sith Lord?
I knew about that. I was going to mention that.
So I actually have this in my notes about Jar Jar, because I've just watched the films, but the thing I like about all the prequels, is they reference things and you go, well, what's that? And then Google it, and then you're all of a sudden deep into the Star Wars canon, and Clone Wars pops up all the time, and that's the reason I want to watch it. But
there is a little hint that Jar Jar actually knows what he's doing all the time, and he's manipulating everyone just like Palpatine was, pulling the strings.
Which I found that theory funny as well. Starting to watch the Clone Wars, I've just finished season 1, and like he gets mistaken for a Jedi multiple times, and I'm like, is he a Jedi? Is he a Sith? Is he just a moron? Which is it?
Well, by episode 3, he's a politician, so
he's
doing something right.
It's quite interesting, that bit. We'll get onto that, how he just kind of gets shoehorned into a role to help Palpatine get to power. Padme's not here, but Jar Jar is. Jar Jar, get on.
That's okay.
Get on that floating platform and represent Naboo.
You're an idiot. You'll say yes to any plan that we throw at you.
Start your sentence with me, sir, and you'll win the crowd over.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think about the fact that Michael Jackson originally wanted to play Jar Jar Binks?
Did he really?
Yeah. Michael Jackson, Die Hard, wanted to play Jar Jar Binks, and he auditioned for it and everything. He was proper going for it. And George Lucas found the guy that ended up playing him, and he took him to a Michael Jackson gig and took him backstage and was like, this guy's Jar Jar Binks, not you.
Wow.
That is actually insane.
Like, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, and, George Lucas just walks in and just mic drops him at his own gig.
That's mad. Well, Ahmed Best came under quite a lot of criticism because of Jar Jar Binks, but he was the first fully CGI character in a film at the time, wasn't he? So it was a big deal. And there's all these behind the scenes shots of him.
First good one, anyway.
Yeah, there's all these behind the scenes shots where he's got this spandex suit and he's got a big pole up his back and there's a little Jar Jar head. And to be fair, when you watch it and you realise that that's all the actors are going off, they do a really good job. He came under a lot of scrutinism, and there was a big article on it a few months back, or it might have been last year or even earlier.
Yeah.
And everyone did this big movement for him. I think it was at a Star Wars celebration or something, and they were like, I don't know, Justice for Ahmed or whatever, because he came out about the bullying and stuff that he got from Star Wars fans, so it was actually a massive deal at the time.
Yeah.
It's crazy, yeah.
I remember that coming out, he was speaking about how he sunk into depression and everything like that after because he was just getting slated online for, nearly 20 years?
Yeah.
That must have been unbearable, and he was posting stuff about he just sort of had to almost go into hiding almost, and he's raised a family now, and he's finally ready to, be open to the world again.
This is it. Imagine wanting to be an actor. You get asked to play in one of the biggest franchises ever known, and then you receive this much hate for it.
That's very much what he was talking about. He was it was such a massive opportunity and he was so excited, and then that happened, but it wasn't his character. You know what I mean? It was George Lucas's character.
It's almost like he performs the motion capture, and all of a sudden you're being demoralized and put down about the career path you want to do.
And it's a shame.
Well, it was was it Kelly Marie Tran as well that played Rose in the sequels?
Yeah, she got
the same. Grief. She got bullied off Instagram and stuff, didn't she?
And it's a shame, really, because I'd say in The Phantom Menace, some of the acting is more janky than what the CGI characters are, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, Jar Jar, looks good for a 90s CGI character.
Yeah.
Complain as much as you want about Misa, but
yeah,
it looked okay.
I forgot what R2-D2's debut was like, and I remembered when I watched this film that it's when he goes on to repair that ship when they're getting away from Naboo.
Oh yeah,
I was thinking, where does R2-D2 come from? Because everyone remembers that C-3PO is Anakin's droid, but I totally forgot that R2-D2 was just a random astromech droid, and
just the last one staying on that ship to repair it.
I also remember as a kid, that scene was a lot longer than what it actually was. It was so tense, all these droids being shot off a ship, and it's I had to go back and replay it because I was I'm sure that's not how long that scene was, but yeah.
You blinked and it was just R2 left.
What's going on? There's a couple of funny bits in this because you've got the whole Padme, and Padme's the queen of Naboo, but she's undercover a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it's actually Keira Knightley who is also in there.
I realised today, I've watched these films multiple times as an adult, and I know straight away, like, you can see the difference, you can tell the difference. But when I was a kid, that blew my mind, that reveal. I was like, what?
Who'd know?
Like, it actually blew my mind. Like, but I've got here in my notes as well, when Padme's dressed as the Queen, I can't stand her fucking voice. Oh yes, oh yes, oh. Like, I can't remember even the lines of dialogue, but she's so droning and stupid when she's dressed as the Queen.
Yeah, she has like 3 lines of dialogue as the Queen, and it's, I won't sign their treaty. That's it.
I won't sign their treaty. It's like, just talk in your normal voice. Why is it as soon as you put the headdress on, you're like, oh yes.
There's a funny bit where they've not done the switch yet, and they've just escaped, and it's where R2-D2 is getting commended, and the Keira Knightley, the fake Queen, tells Padme to clean the droid. And it's like,
I noticed that. Yeah, like the audacity.
I know, yeah.
You're in my spot right now. It's quite funny because so my girlfriend Jess, she's never seen Star Wars. So as soon as I found that out, I thought, that's changing. So this is about, I think about 5 months ago. I was even speaking to yourself about it. So I'm like, what order do we do it in? Now, obviously, the correct order to watch is 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and the new ones if you want to.
That's how you would have watched it if you'd lived through it, isn't it?
Exactly. But I thought, well, this is a test. This is someone that's never seen Star Wars, never been interested in it. I'm going to make her watch 1, 2, 3 so she can't judge them because I have no judgment to them because they're aimed at me. I forgive them and then enjoy the next lot. So seeing the twist in episode 3 that she didn't see coming, but everyone else who went to watch it does see it. It was quite fun. But when Keira Knightley says to Padme, clean that astro droid, she was like, wait a minute, what? And I never picked up on it. I was like, oh my God, she does.
Of all the bits for her to have a moment where she's like, I need to pick up on that, it's the bit where she tells her to clean the droid. That's what she picked up on, yeah. So we get to our next planet in A Phantom Menace, which is Tatooine, and we get our first look at Anakin Skywalker. Not necessarily Anakin Skywalker as we know him in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but we get young child Anakin Skywalker in the form of Jake Lloyd.
The worst version of Anakin Skywalker.
I have to agree with you there, because the first pickup line he tries with Padme is the worst thing I've ever heard.
It's every drunk guy in a club at 4 o'clock when he hasn't found someone to go home with yet.
Are you an angel? Because I've heard angels live in space or something like that. It was like like a kid trying to do 1940s acting. It was like the worst thing I've ever heard.
I've heard the traders say that they're the most beautiful creatures in the universe.
Also, a slave should not have that much confidence. Sit down, speak when you're spoken to.
These are not the views of the rest of the Get Real podcast.
So just
whoa. I mean, in that universe. Do not take this out of context.
Anyway.
An Earful merch. Get it.
To defend Jake Lloyd, he actually got quite a lot of grief like what Ahmed Best got. Did you see what Jake Lloyd looked like now? Didn't he go to jail?
Did he really?
Yeah, I'm sure he got done for something and went to jail, you know. Because the photo, if you look at Jake Lloyd and you Google image Jake Lloyd now, you get a mugshot of him, and he looks rough. It's like Macaulay Culkin at the worst time, kind of rough.
Oh shit, yeah.
Acting fame for kids ain't good.
Yeah, child actors have it rough, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got like a skinhead and a cut under his eye. He definitely went for like fighting or something, but it looks like an under eye tattoo.
What's your thoughts on young Anakin, Matt?
I hate him, but I like him at the same time.
Oh, go on. What did you like about him?
Well, one, I had that haircut as a kid, so I somewhat resonate with the character, although I never speak to women like that. And just how whiny Hayden Christian is in number 2 makes me defend this Anakin.
That's fair.
It's a kid. I can kind of accept it.
We were talking before the podcast about how creepy Anakin is in episode 2. And like, I do not like Anakin in episode 2 at all.
No.
There's a couple of creep moments there. Yeah, like how can you get away with saying stuff like that to a senator? It's like, what?
Anakin only becomes a likable character in episode 3.
Yeah.
When he becomes the villain.
Yeah.
When he becomes the most liked villain You know, it's one of them. Do you know, Matt, in this film we find out that Anakin's not born naturally. He was conceived through the Force. Do you know the story?
Conception?
Yeah. do you know the story about that? Like how in comics it linked?
I'm guessing midichlorians and whatever this, what do they call it? Prophecy.
As we learn to find in The Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine orchestrated the whole thing, didn't he? So what we actually get in a comic is Palpatine using midichlorians to put Anakin inside of Shmi Skywalker.
Wow. Yeah, I might have to rewatch the sequel and be a bit more forgiving and maybe like, this is quite a cool story all of a sudden.
As we move on into episode 2 and 3, there's a lot of conversation between Anakin and Palpatine where Palpatine calls him son a lot. And it kind of makes you think, like, he obviously put the baby in there. And
he put it in there.
Yeah. This all swirly.
He definitely did put it in
Force magic.
It's so convoluted, but at the same time, like in the grand scheme of things, it does kind of make sense because he is talking about the creation of life and not just like being able to preserve life, but create life at the same time.
He does say that, and it links back. It's one of them. I think you get more.
You just overlook that.
It's the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, is what it is.
Yeah.
You just overlook when he mentions that, and now that you've said that, and I'll rewatch these again in about 5 years, I'll go, oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. You get more out of the prequels when you go back and watch them and know about other stuff. It almost becomes more forgiving that you know it's not just midichlorians and that's not just the reason why Anakin's born. You know there's more to it there. And it makes the whole midichlorians thing more forgiving because people did not like that when this film came out at all. People didn't like it.
I was about to say, how did we feel about the introduction of midichlorians as opposed to just the Force being the Force flowing through every living thing? Now it's tiny microscopic creatures flowing through every living thing.
I preferred it because in real life I was born into a Christian household and now I'm atheist, and I prefer science than I believe this and I just believe it. So for me, I was like, yeah, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point of view because I was just thinking then, like, midichlorians is like looking at the Force from a science perspective rather than looking at it from a Jedi perspective. And
exactly, yeah.
That's all essentially it is, I suppose, isn't it? It's an interesting...
Yeah.
Everything's atoms, so why can't it just be a different type of, you know...
Yeah, the Jedis do get called, like, a religion, like, multiple times and stuff like that. Especially in Rogue One where you've got, like, the Church of the Wills and all that sort of stuff. It is a full-on religion.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker in the sequel calls it a religion. That's what it is, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah. So you believe in something.
The way I always thought about it, the reason I wasn't the biggest fan of midichlorians was because I felt more of it was just sort of this underlying energy. Everything is resonant, everything's connected, and it's just how you connect into it. It wasn't really a religion as I saw it. It was just sort of like the underlying energy of the entire universe type thing. But now that you like put the whole religion slant on it, I'm like, midichlorians actually do make more sense.
A bit more science, I'll give them that. To it.
I think it's interesting because if you got more Qui-Gon, because it's only really Qui-Gon who talks about it like that. He's like proper big on the midichlorian side of it as a Jedi Master. So this is again coming back, like he's got in the story, he's got a really interesting point of view. It's again one of them, like if he was there to tell more of the story, you might have a really interesting twist on it. Before we move on to the next thing we're probably going to come up to is the pod racing sequence. But just before we get onto this, we spoke a little bit about this, Matt, when we were talking about prequels, but the age gap between young Anakin and Padme and how he rapidly ages by Attack of the Clones. However, Chris, do you know how old Anakin and Padme are meant to be in this film?
Isn't she meant to be like older teens and he's like 10 or something?
Very close. So Anakin's 9 in this and Padme is 13.
She's a queen and a senator at 13.
Queen and heavily evolved in politics.
Natalie Portman was 13 when they filmed this.
Was she? She was actually 13.
Yeah, she was actually 13. Look, you can fact check me there.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Damn.
I'm pretty certain she played her age in this film. She was 13.
I thought she was like 16, 17 or something.
No, man. She's 30. So there's only a 4-year age gap between Anakin and Padme. So I think by the time it comes round to Attack of the Clones, Anakin's 19 years old. and she's 23, which makes you. It's like, hang on. At first, in the Phantom Menace, that age gap didn't make sense, and now all of a sudden it really does. It's really weird. But
at first,
they don't explain that very well.
It's, you just assume Padme is grooming Anakin, and that's all you assume. It's a cover-up. We're done.
Yeah,
that's it. Because he's like child, but I think it's just Natalie Portman comes.
You just hit that growth
because she's a queen. You assume she's a lot older, but no, like it might make you feel a lot better about that age gap that happens in the film.
That's why they had to wait for the romance in the sequel when it's 10 years.
Just to let you know, the laws on Tatooine are different.
What's the age of consent on Tatooine?
Right, okay, so moving swiftly on. So what do we think of the pod racing sequence?
Now this is pod racing.
What did you think of it, Matt?
This scene, so I'm heavily, if no one knows, I heavily love audio and stuff like that. That's my kind of thing. The sound design on these prequel movies is incredible.
I agree.
Ben Burt is, I watched hours and hours of just in the studio, how he recorded it, what Foley stuff was used, and it made me like enjoy, the process of audio, and made me want to go and do Foley for films myself, and that's why I did it. So this is why I have a love for the prequels. That you can't fault the sound design at all.
For the time, especially.
100%.
I also kind of think maybe the music is largely better in the prequels. All my favourite songs are probably from the original trilogy, but the overall music, like there's always amazing music in every scene.
Yeah, definitely.
In the prequels.
Duel of Fates heavily, tips the scale.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's a part in my notes, just in bold on its own. Duel of Fates.
Definitely.
That's it.
Duel of the Fates.
That's a very different topic, that, Chris. Duel of the Fates is a very different topic.
It's a different episode. That's episode 3.
During the pod racing sequence, there's actually quite a lot of little cameos that you get throughout this. And the ones I can think of is you get Warwick Davis as a spectator. Yeah. You also get, if you've watched the Clone Wars or if you've played any of the Star Wars mobile games, there's a bounty hunter that appears, Aura Singh, who is the white-skinned, literally Snow White-skinned with bright red hair.
Yeah, I've heard of this, yeah.
Yeah, she appears on the side of a cliff while they're racing through the canyons. And I'm sure she was in it at first, and then they actually just took her character and turned her into a bounty hunter, which is pretty cool. I'm sure there's a few more, but there was a lot of added scenes in this as well. I'm sure they added a pod racer in on this Disney Plus version.
Really?
I don't think it was in the Disney Plus version. I think it's been, George Lucas kept messing around with them, because there's like a CGI looking one, isn't there? Like the character riding it is fully CGI. I noticed that when I watched the Blu-rays of it that I got last year or something when I watched it.
I mean, you obviously get Jabba.
You get a second Jabba. You get a smaller Jabba next to him as well.
You do.
Jabba Jr.
I think that's the first time, apart from in the shots in the Senate, where you get another Hutt, someone from the Hutt clan, which is interesting.
Yeah, in the live action films, you get loads of them in the animated stuff.
Yeah.
This is one thing I noticed rewatching these. Am I right in saying the person that owns Anakin and his mother, he's a Hutt as well? I'm sure they mentioned his surname being the Hutt, but later on when Qui-Gon threatens him, he says, "Do you want me to take this to the Hutts?" And it just gave me a lot of confusion.
I think the Hutts is a general name for all the crime lords on Tatooine.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So it's also a race, but it's also a crime family, because they speak Huttese, I think is the language that they speak. So it's like a bit weird. It's like between you can tell we're just ultimate Star Wars nerds. Like, we need a pop quiz for Star Wars facts.
This is why I ask questions, because this is what I love about Star Wars. Like, I've been playing the latest Star Wars game that came out, and it'll reference something, and immediately Google it, and then there's Wikipedia, and I'm like, great, let's have a look into this.
So Watto doesn't have a surname.
Just Watto.
Oh, right, okay. I'm wrong then. Maybe I misheard.
Yeah. So he bought them from Gradula the Hutt.
So another big thing about The Phantom Menace that changed, while we're speaking of changes, is the old Yoda to the new CGI Yoda.
I think that's the best change that they've done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I like this Yoda, and me and my brother speak about the Star Wars franchise a lot. He prefers the puppet Yoda, and it shocked me. So I don't know if that's because there's an age difference there. My brother's 10 years older than I am, and he prefers puppet Yoda, and it annoys him that there's CGI Yoda in this.
It depends if he's talking about puppet Yoda in the original trilogy. Because Puppet Yoda's fine in the original trilogy, but Puppet Yoda in the prequel trilogy is very, very different.
He looks so proper strange. Janky in episode 1.
Yeah, but it's nice because there's less of like a separation when you're watching 1, 2, and 3 that it's the same Yoda. It just makes it feel a lot better, I think, when you watch it. Also, speaking about CGI, the bigger fish thing, how sick are the monsters under the water? Yeah,
one's practically a dinosaur. It's got arms, walks like a T-Rex. It's amazing.
It's just underwater T-Rex, why not?
Yeah, I'll take it.
So I was really glad that in the sequels that they brought back Puppet Yoda instead of CGI Yoda, because obviously it follows on from the original trilogy where we had the Puppet Yoda, because the sequels were a lot more about bringing back practical stuff as well. That was really pleasing for me, but I think in the prequels, you couldn't have had a puppet Yoda, especially with all the flips and shit that he starts doing in episode 2 and 3. You can't have a puppet doing flips and shit without seeing somebody's arm hanging out of it.
To me, it's all about, not being taken out. So if you can believe in the world, then great, it works. And you can sort of excuse the change from original trilogy being puppet and then the sequels continuing to be puppet.
It probably makes sense, because imagine if you got to the sequel trilogy, so you got to episode 8 when you see him, and it was a CGI Yoda, it would look really different because it's much older as well. Yeah. So it made sense to do puppet because that's already around the age that you need anyhow. So
and I'm a big fan of practical effects anyway. So if that can be done, then great.
And Star Wars do practical effects incredibly well. So
that was one thing that rewatching episode 1 and 2 made me miss, was the practical side of Star Wars. Because there's nothing practical in those 2 films. There's a few more practical sets mixed with CGI in episode 3. But I just miss practical props in films, which I was so glad about the sequels bringing back practical props and animated aliens and stuff.
To me, if you can blend both of them, you get like a perfect world. I'm a big fan of, I'm sure you're probably both familiar with Corridor Digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, their videos I love because they do that, don't they? They make you love CGI and computer generated stuff, but they use practical as well and see how it works together.
I've learned so much about CGI from those
Me
guys.
too. I've never had any experience about it. I just watch it for fun, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, look at that smoke simulation. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Or like when you see full face replacements and stuff,
it's amazing.
You notice it more in films, but you're like,
it makes you appreciate it more. So going back to when these were filmed, the CGI I can excuse and be like, yeah, okay. For at the time, I imagine it fit perfectly. I was a kid.
Yeah, and considering a lot of the remasters stuff just kind of tweaks it, and it doesn't apart from Yoda, it doesn't fully replace very much on there. It just shows how much of a good job they did in the first place. So to wrap up The Phantom Menace, we've got a couple of final little bits to talk about. We have the Gungans fighting the droid army, and then we also have the Darth Maul fight. We'll do the worst before we do the best bit of this film.
You're missing out. The best part of the entire thing is the prolonged Senate scenes as well.
Yeah. Look, we've already spoken in depth about how Chancellor Palpatine, sorry, not Chancellor at this point, Senator Palpatine kind of nudges out the current Chancellor, twists Padme into doing a vote.
I plea for a vote of no confidence.
And you see a lot more of that. When I've gone back and watched it, you see that sly bastard doing all this stuff a lot more.
Yeah, and just manipulating everyone.
You can see the chessboard, can't you?
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, definitely. And I think that...
And you get another cameo in this scene as well from John Burko with a big order! Order!
You also get E.T. aliens.
You do get E.T.
You do get E.T. aliens. Are they canon? Who knows? Well, they have to be. They're in the film. They have to be canon now.
And in E.T., he sees a kid dressed as Yoda, and he goes to talk to him because he knows him.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Forget the Romans, forget the cavemen, forget the dinosaurs, just Star Wars. That's all we need.
We descended from Jedi.
We don't need Alex Jones, we just need... You can't really say Alex...
Listen, I'm a little bit retarded, but I think we descended from Jedi.
I hope this podcast doesn't get like Sly blacklisted for saying his name, like some weird...
You're going to get cancelled.
Algorithm.
Yeah, some weird algorithm that we've just hit up there.
Right, onto the Gungans.
Yeah, did you know Boss Nass, who is Chris's favourite character, because he does his favourite impression of him... He's just filled his mouth full of water. It's perfect.
I also had to think, I was like, who the fuck is that?
You don't know him as Boss Nash, you just know him as the guy who does that sound.
How is he a member of the Gungan race? Because he looks nothing like the rest of the Gungans. He doesn't have the eye stalks. Yeah. He's like fat, he's got eye spikes and everything. How's he a leader of the Gungans when he's clearly not a Gungan?
Well, you do have like weird crossovers of races on certain planets.
Crossbreeds.
Interspecies breeding.
Well, yeah, I mean...
How did a crossbreed become the leader of a thoroughbred nation?
I don't know, it's like, you'll get this when you get onto Clone Wars, but the Admiral Akbar race, the Mon Calamari, there's also a race called the Quarians who you see, who have got like weird tentacles coming out the mouths. They both come from the same planet as well. But one of them is the leader and one of them isn't. So it's weird. Boss Nass, by the way, is the guy.
There it is. I was waiting for the impression. As soon as you said it, I assumed I knew who it was.
Do you know who plays him? Do you know who his voice is?
No.
Brian Blessed.
It kind of looks a bit like him as well.
Yeah, of course.
There you go. In terms of the Gungan fight versus the droids, I didn't think that action scene was bad. I thought it was pretty cool.
For a civilized race that have like they've been able to manufacture underwater like force fields, like housing and stuff. Why are they all using spears and little fucking balls of energy? Where are your blasters? Like, they're the most inefficient weapons that they've got. They're having to use slings like David and Goliath to fucking slingshot a little blue orbit, a droid.
Where are all your underwater dinosaurs at?
Yeah, exactly. What is it, goober fish? Just use a few of those.
Yeah.
And you see in Clone Wars as well that Jar Jar Binks can communicate with creatures like that and get them to fight for him. So, like, why not?
Can we talk about how Brian Blessed's character now all of a sudden immediately is like, oh, Jar Jar, you're good friends with these Jedi now. How about you're a general? You know, he's not earned that. He's just like, up the ranks, you'll be a politician next film, don't worry, you're doing well.
You brought the Queen to kneel to me. Yeah, sound, you're a general now.
He's just saying that thinking, look, Jar Jar's going to go get himself killed, let him leave.
Put him on the front line.
By the way, he gets force mind tricked to fuck at the beginning of this film, that guy. Qui-Gon's just throwing out his force mind tricks all over the place.
So this is another thing, like, Qui-Gon Jinn's clearly a powerful Jedi, he's wise, bit separate from what the council have been saying, and they get rid of him in the first film. It feels like such a waste.
You know what? It might be what we get in the Obi-Wan series. You might get Liam Neeson come back, because it might take place
Force Ghost.
Yeah, you might get Force Ghost Liam Neeson, because that'd be really cool. I would take that, where you get Qui-Gon being more of a mentor character for a more developed Obi-Wan. That'd be very cool.
So moving on from that, while we're talking about Qui-Gon, Duel of the Fates. Let's talk about this Darth Maul fight. The thing that saves this film. This is what maybe makes this film better than Attack of the Clones, is the Darth Maul fight and pod racing.
I watched the originals first, then prequels. Obviously, I went and seen the prequels as a kid and thought, ooh, shiny lights, this is cool. Taking the story seriously, I did it the right way. But when you watch those original three, your head starts turning because it's such an amazing universe that you go, oh my god, imagine loads of these. Imagine the fights, because you don't get such a powerful acrobatic fight with Luke and Darth Vader. So when you saw this, I was on the edge of my seat, like, this is what I wanted. A universe of Jedi, you know, they're everywhere. Look at this battle.
What was the first lightsaber on lightsaber fight sequence we ever saw? It was Darth Vader versus old Ben Kenobi. And it's not a good fight in the slightest. Obviously, it means a lot, but it's not like an action-packed fight.
Have you seen the CGI redo of that?
I was about to say, yes, it's incredible.
Don't think I have.
It's a bit like a freelance special effects guy did a retake on that scene.
Yeah.
And it is amazing. I'll show you it
Yeah,
after
so
the podcast.
It's like
wicked.
they talk about it on Corridor Digital a couple times when they talk about the CGI in Star Wars, but they got 2 actors to recreate it out, and then they did a full deep fake face replacement on Ben Kenobi.
Oh, it's sick.
Oh, wow.
It's so cool. But
Yeah, you'll have to
that's
send me
more
that.
like what we get in the prequels, and I totally agree. One of the best things the prequels have going for it is definitely the lightsaber fights.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
the lightsaber choreography is just spot on, and it only gets better each film. The world building itself is really good as well. Like, everything feels so grandiose and huge and big scale versus what it does in the original trilogy as well. Just looking at this fight in Duel of the Fates, you've got this huge room, which obviously you've got more solid CGI where you can do stuff like that. And the music, man. The music. Darth
It's
Maul
amazing.
was taken away from us too soon.
You're going to get a copyright strike soon.
Darth Maul was brought back. If you don't know that, you should just know that by now. But
Spider legs.
in terms of what we get of him in films, he was taken away too soon.
Like, I still remember for the first time. So I didn't see Phantom Menace in cinemas because we were like 4 years old. Obviously, I didn't see it in cinema. I think I had seen all of them by the age of 5. I had seen the original trilogy, and we had this on VHS. And I remember sitting there for the first time watching this, and like that moment where he's at the door and he lights one end of his lightsaber, and then the other one sticks out. Like, again today when I watched it, I lost my shit. I'm like, oh, there's 2 of them. And then that just became the most sold toy of that year. Like,
Yeah.
everybody wanted
Yeah,
the Darth Maul
1000%.
lightsaber.
it's funny.
I want it in the new game now. I've been trying to
Yeah.
get it. It pisses me off.
You've not got the dual-ended lightsaber?
I'm very lazy with my video games. I'm
I got
just
that like
sat up
the
here,
first
but
hour.
yeah.
Straight away, I was like, I'm checking every little corner, and I found it so early. I was like, I forgot the dual-ended lightsaber already. Thought I was hacking.
The whole reveal you get of the double-ended lightsaber was actually in the original trailer for when this film came out, and you've got people reacting to that like how people reacted to Kylo Ren's lightsaber that you first see in The Force Awakens, where it like you get the little offshoots at the side,
Yeah.
and people lose their minds over it. People are like,
the thing
"What?"
is, this was before like internet trailers and internet video was really a thing.
And reactions and stuff like that.
Yeah. So this trailer first dropped. Some people didn't even know they were making new Star Wars films until they went to the cinema. I can't remember what film it premiered beforehand, but people were going and buying tickets just to go see the Star Wars trailer. A group of fans must have like been watching another film, and then imagine being sat there before like Elite a Battle Angel or something. I don't know why that popped to mind. And then you just see a trailer for the Avengers or something like that you didn't know was being made. And like, imagine you're like, oh my god, there's new Star Wars, and then all of a sudden there's a bright red guy with horns and he just has a 2-ended lightsaber. Imagine that reaction in the cinema.
I remember going watching some terrible horror movie with my partner, and I'm a massive fan of The Shining, and I saw a Doctor Sleep trailer pop up, and I thought, what on earth is going on? I had no idea. So that was on like a little scale. Imagine having no communication, you've waited years about a franchise you love, and then boom.
I would have loved to have been like in the cinema for that moment.
Look, we've got a lot to talk about still. So to finish off the Phantom Menace, I mean, we've already touched on little bits and bobs of the others, but the last note I made about the Phantom Menace was the ending parade, and I noted this and said, you can't end Star Wars on a bad note, i.e. Qui-Gon's death. You can't go Avengers Infinity War it. That would essentially be what you would do if you ended it on that. So
Yeah.
that helps you forgive that parade bit at the end a little bit more, because it wouldn't be very Star Wars.
Peace.
I've got 2 things about this ending. One, Qui-Gon, how come he didn't just disappear into the Force like all other Jedis do, especially considering he knows how to come back as a Force ghost, so he should have been able to do it. Why didn't he disappear into his robes?
He's the black sheep of the Jedi Council. That's what it is.
The other one was when all the Jedi are getting off the ship in the background for the end parade, they've got the stand-in for Mace Windu in. It's not actual Samuel L. Jackson, and you can see him full on walking towards the camera, this stand-in for him. And it's so painfully obvious there's only one black Jedi, and that is not Samuel L. Jackson I'm seeing right now.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Gotta watch this again.
I didn't spot that either. You got any final thoughts on The Phantom Menace?
I've got a few footnotes, actually, that I've not squeezed in.
Go ahead.
So, some things that annoyed me is how accidentally amazing Jar Jar is at fighting. Like, here's a plasma grenade, lean on the tank, we're doing well.
It's that Sith Lord coming back out again. That's what's going on.
Right, was that just a fan theory, or did it ever get confirmed?
It's a theory.
It didn't get confirmed. I
want it to be real so bad.
He impersonates a Jedi in the animated series. That's kind of where it comes from, yeah.
Right, okay. When Anakin is in the Naboo speeder, space ship, whatever.
Starfighter.
Okay, there we go. Excuse my terminology.
Naboo Starfighter. I had a miniature of it.
He accidentally blows up the whole control ship, and we're supposed to be like, great, that Gungan battle was amazing. And it's all thanks to Jar Jar all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just accidental stuff that happens that we're like, well, that was convenient. On to the next bit.
Yeah. It's like he's only ever driven a pod racer before, and then all of a sudden he can fly into space, destroy an entire cruiser without taking a single hit and come back. Yeah, sound okay.
And he can also...
And the other pilots are like, what the fuck just happened?
Oh, it's one of ours. But that's another thing. All of a sudden... he gets this pod race, and then he's like, oh, I've never finished or won one. And then all of a sudden, like, well, a Jedi backed me, so I'm doing okay.
And his mum's okay just sending him out there, just there like, oh, you want to risk your life for these people that you met 2 minutes ago because you think the girl's cute? Okay, yeah, go.
Well, the slaves, what's the worst that can happen? You know.
I want us to rank each of these films. We're going to do it for the entire 3 episodes. Star Wars or Star Bores? What are we thinking for Phantom Menace?
For me, this is Star Wars. So the reasons to watch it, the soundtrack, the sound design, you get acrobatic lightsaber battles, which, on that note about the Duel of Fates battle, 2 Jedi take on Darth Maul, and Darth Maul's like, yeah, this is easy, I'm going to kill you off one by one. Doesn't that show how powerful Darth Maul is, that he can easily manage with 2 of them?
That's a good point. And he's a Sith apprentice as well. He's just master, don't worry about it. I'll go do this. Yeah.
And they're still trying to work out, is he the master, is he the apprentice? And clearly, he's doing better than anyone.
Yeah.
So he's my second favourite character that got killed off too soon in this universe.
There's also a theory about that, because obviously the Force is in balance. So you've got all those Jedi in the Jedi Order, there's hundreds of them sharing the light side of the Force, whereas there's only the rule of 2 on the side of the Sith. The argument is that they're splitting their half of the Force balance between 2 people, whereas the Jedis are splitting it between hundreds.
And that's why
so
they're more
Sith
powerful.
are more powerful, yeah.
Interesting.
That is the theory that goes. Also, I love that bit where Qui-Gon is there, like, he takes the minute behind the red laser to meditate, to refocus, to harness himself, to become a Zen, Buddhist, space monk warrior, and then Darth Maul's just prowling like an angry tiger, literally ready to strike. Oh, so good!
It is amazing.
I was on the borderline a bit between Star Bore and Star Wars then, but I'm going to give it the Star Wars as well, definitely.
That's 3 Star Wars from us. On to Attack of the Clones.
You know what? I'm going to say it was a bit more forgivable in the second half to what I remember it, but we'll get on to that. So the first thing is the difference in visual effects, I think, with this and the first one. It jumps. That first scene you get where that mirrored spaceship comes in is just wicked.
Yeah.
Looks
and
awesome.
the shadows of the buildings and stuff on there.
Yeah.
That's what I love as well. You got to see a city of, these E.T. creatures, if you will.
I'll tell you what doesn't age very well, though, in this. Palpatine ages a considerable amount when you see him in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Ian McDermott, whatever you did in those years between it.
I think it was makeup. Because then you see him in Revenge of the Sith and he doesn't look as old as he did in Attack of the Clones. Yeah. I noticed that at the beginning of Attack of the Clones, they proper aged him up.
It must be the same sort of stress being a Chancellor as what it is getting married at 19 like Anakin did.
That's what politics does to you.
Literally, my first two notes are big step up in production quality, which, like we had just addressed, it absolutely is. And then Obi-Wan's redesigned to just be Space Jesus.
Literally.
Which it shows the difference there, because my two notes are Anakin ages fast, and it's pretty much a competition between Anakin and Obi-Wan throughout, and that's what I like about that beginning bit. Trying to one-up one another.
There's a bit at the beginning, like straight away, when Anakin meets Padme again, and he's straight in with the "You're more beautiful than what I remember" line.
Yeah, you've grown too. Grown more beautiful. For a senator, I mean. I've literally just got him a notes as, the cringe.
It's like,
oh god.
In front of everyone, including his master, it's just totally creep alert. And what I put on here was, it reminds me of everything that I didn't like about this film. And then a few minutes later, he says to Obi-Wan, "I'd much rather be dreaming of Padme." How could Obi-Wan not see all of this coming? No wonder he knows about them.
Obi-Wan does kind of say, doesn't he, like in the third one, he's just there like, I kind of know what's been going on. I've just been turning a blind eye to it.
That's
Which,
it,
not to jump back to the first one, but Obi-Wan is very like arrogant towards the kid. Doesn't he say something like, "Why do I feel like we've picked up another pathetic life form?" And I was like, oh, the chops. Yeah. It's amazing.
Obi-Wan is definitely the sassiest motherfucker in the trilogy.
And then all of a sudden it's, well, I gave Qui-Gon my word, so I'll train him.
Well, Qui-Gon's got his back throughout that whole film, because he says to Obi-Wan, "You've still got much to learn," and then he says to the council, "He's learned everything that I can teach." It's amazing.
Which I think leads on to my next note. This contradiction of, is Obi-Wan ready or not? Is he a good Jedi or not? Obviously, that droid comes in and tries to like poison Padme, and then Obi-Wan just yeets himself out the window. Like, you're on like the millionth floor of a building, and you don't know whether you're gonna land that hit or not on the droid. He just absolutely yeets himself out the building. Like, if he missed, then he was dead. Roll credits. Done. I think I broke Sam with that.
Why isn't that like a supercut where it's like
a rated R version?
Yeah, like the version of Phantom Menace where somebody edited out Jar Jar Binks. Just get the version where Obi-Wan falls to his death.
That's it. You just need to have the film as it is at the beginning, and then he just yeets out the window and then just falls and dies. That's it.
Misses the droid. Gets hit by a few speeders on the way down.
Just ragdolling down.
I don't think anything else I can say can beat that. Jeez.
But then it's followed up when they finally like end up in the club, don't they? So they have the whole speeder chase fight trying to find Zam, the bounty hunter, the changeling. They walk into the thing and Obi-Wan is straight away just like, "Why do I feel like you're going to be the death of me?" Is like, on the nose.
Speaking on the nose, he says straight away, like, Anakin says to Obi-Wan as they walk into a club, just like, "You're the closest thing I've got to a father." It's like, just in case you didn't know how Anakin looks at Obi-Wan, at this point where they're walking into a club, we'll just remind you.
He says it about 6 times throughout the film to Padme.
Yeah.
He's like a father to me, he's like a father to me, he's like a father
but
to me.
Obi-Wan's like...
And then in Revenge of the Sith, he's like a brother to me.
Yeah.
You are a brother to me!
That's what hurt Anakin the most.
To be honest, I thought that was them, because during the Clone Wars, they matured more, and he saw Anakin more on a level field. He didn't feel like a father figure to him. He felt like they were equal, like brothers.
Yeah, that's a
So
good
I don't
way.
think that was an insult. I think that was a compliment.
What I do quite like about the beginning of Attack of the Clones is you do see Obi-Wan have an apprentice all of a sudden, and he's still trying to, like, you know, figure it out. It's his first ever apprentice, so you can see them having banter with one another, trying to one up one another, going, "Oh, I sense that too," and like you say, yeets out the window like he's onto something. So that's quite nice. And then by episode 3, it's like, oh, you've clearly got the hang of this.
And by all means, he's dropped in the deep end. Like, he didn't choose to take
100%.
Anakin. Qui-Gon was like, in his dying words, "You need to take him and train him." So
he was guilt-tripped into it.
Yeah, he ain't got a choice. So, I mean, while we're on the topic of Anakin and things that he says, one of the ultimate weird things that happens in this around this sort of time is the whole "don't look at me like that, Anakin," followed by the creepiest face.
She literally says, "Don't look at me like that, it makes me feel uncomfortable." And then the most "I'm a rapist" stare you've ever seen. Take a second take on that. I honestly swear they didn't shoot more than one take of most of these scenes. Like, they were one and done, like Cannonball, let's shoot this film, one take wonders.
It was also the creation of memes, this one. This was like the Death Sticks meme, the I don't like sand meme. There was so much that came out of this film that was good for the Star Wars community at the same time. We
got the Anthony Daniels cameo in the club as well, without the C-3PO armor.
Oh, is that where the cameo is?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's talking to like a bunch of women at the club, and like when they start causing a scene and stuff, he's the one that gets the reaction shot of what's going on.
Interesting.
I can't believe I rewatched all 3 prequels, and now after this conversation, I'm going to rewatch all 3 prequels.
We're the little Easter egg hunters.
We're only halfway through at the minute as well, so...
I jumped sort of straight to Obi-Wan searching for Kamino. So he sees everybody's favourite character in the prequel trilogy, Dexter Jettster.
This is my next note as well. So, did anyone forget that he has a mustache? This alien has a mustache, by the way.
Every time I forget he has a mustache until I see him.
The only other one of this race that I've seen is in the Clone Wars, right? Has anyone seen his polar opposite in the Clone Wars? He's a Jedi general, and he uses 2 double-bladed lightsabers, and he has 4 arms. And he is a monster. He is.
I've got to watch this.
And then when you see Dexter Jettster, and you're like, it's this guy who's like pulling up his pants with one arm,
this greasy
working
cut
in a greasy spoon.
Yeah, he didn't get enough screen time, if I'm honest. He needed more.
Somebody's actually made a supercut. They've made Dexter Jettster a Star Wars story.
Oh my god, that's
like
amazing.
an 11-minute short film on.
He must have been pretty knowledgeable though for Obi-Wan to go to him
clearly,
of all people. Yeah.
Like, what does he say? The archives didn't pick it up. All of a sudden, Dex is like, "Yeah, look at these marks on the side. Go to this planet." Like.
Well, no, that's what leads him to go to the archives, doesn't he? He's like, it's from Kamino.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, go to the
correct.
archives.
Sorry,
then that old crone, she's just there. She's just there like, if it's not in the archives, it don't fucking exist, does it? And then a youngling proves her wrong. She's meant to be one of the smartest Jedi that has ever lived. That's why she's in charge of the archive. And she gets proven wrong by a youngster.
Yeah.
A youngling.
Well, the youngling also proves it for Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan couldn't figure out that it had been deleted by someone. It was a youngling going, "You not thought about this?"
That's Obi-Wan been blinded by the Jedi Council is what that is. And the youngling's just there like, maybe someone just deleted it. No, the Jedi wouldn't do that. It's just like, yeah, but what if they did?
I get why Anakin was so angry when he walked into that room full of younglings in Revenge of the Sith now.
You prove my master wrong, I'm going to kill you all.
That's why he was so upset at the end. He was like, I did this for you. Kind of really hated what they did with him in this. Like, they turned him into, from the end of Phantom Menace, he had a lot of potential to become what he did like in Revenge of the Sith. But he was just a total stroppy hormonal teenager in this, all the way through.
I thought Anakin was 13 in this movie, because that's the way he acts.
Yeah.
He's a late bloomer, okay?
Yeah.
Clearly.
It took until he was 19 to have his growth spurt, and it took until he was 19 to have his hormonal teenage phase.
Which is surprising, because he's hitting on women at the age of 10.
9.
And he's got nine and nothing to back it up.
So we spoke about a lot of the stuff that we don't like in Attack of the Clones. I think it's time we balance it out with some of the stuff that we do like. There is a lot of stuff when I went back and watched this that is actually really good. So I would say that Jango, Obi-Wan, and Dooku are the best characters in this film.
Yeah.
100%. Those 3 carry the film with like the coolest moments. When we get to Kamino, you meet Jango for the first time, who has got the most sterling acting out of everybody in this film so far, and he's not even a majorly important
He's the
character.
only one showing any sort of emotion, that's why.
Yeah.
His son, so Boba Fett, baby Boba Fett, is more annoying than young Anakin. And he's ordering his dad about, like, when they're in the Slave One and stuff, he's like, shoot him, Dad, go on, shoot him, fire now.
And it's his face when he's like, we're going to go into the asteroid field, and all of a sudden this kid's like, great. Fuck off.
He's just fucking, like, staring like he wants to cut a bitch, and then he's just there like, yeah, kill him, yeah!
So I really wish we got more of Slave One than what we got in this film. I mean, generally in the whole, like, live-action movies, I really wish we got like a little bit of Boba Fett in Slave One, because those seismic charges, when they go off, the
sound design is amazing. Like the fact that you have that delay of when it explodes because the speed of sound and everything. Oh, it was amazing. Going back a little though, I do love that they reference Sifo Dyas, and this is where I'm going, who's that? And then I end up looking into it. It seems like an endless world with Star Wars.
Yeah.
You look into one thing and it leads to another, and then you fall down a rabbit hole.
With that, they mentioned making other clone armies for other people. Where are these other clone armies? Are we ever going to see this? Like, because I haven't seen any other clone army in any other sort of expanded universe thing that I've ever seen from Star Wars. I've never seen another clone army.
The Sifo Dyas arc's actually really interesting. Like, if you do get the chance, I think the Clone Wars animated series, I keep going back to it because I've only just watched it. It links in so much little bits and bobs throughout the Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. There's actually about 3 or 4 episodes on Sifo Dyas where you actually see him and stuff. So I won't spoil what it's about and stuff in particular, but it does touch on that. So you do get a lot of extra bits of filler in there as well.
Yeah,
because it is just like 10 years ago, Sifo Dyas put this order in of a clone army for the Republic. And then that's it. And apparently, I did read he was supposed to get a bit more information in episode 3 about it, but they got rid of it for some reason.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because they also touch on Tyrannus, who is actually Count Dooku. So you get to get this thread where you realise how prepared Order 66 is from when the clones are actually created because of all that. So,
and how they've manipulated it all. Right, I see.
Next notes on here are more negative stuff. It's more about the pair that Anakin cuts up and forces over to.
Let's just talk about that entire romance arc, right?
Get it out of the way.
Like, I've literally written, George Lucas is clearly trying to write Shakespeare here. It's like the worst Romeo and Juliet fan fiction I've ever read. like, it's awful. Like, he's clearly trying to be so profound with what he's saying.
Sometimes
shocking.
There doesn't have to be a love interest or a love moment for us to get that people like one another. We feel like when I watched it, I felt like I was being treated like an idiot. Like, I get that they like one another.
It must have been a direction choice. Everybody is so bland in this film. Like, I know they don't like the dialogue that they're having to say, but they're not trying to sell it in the slightest. Like, they're all monotone. It's like, it must have been a directional choice that you have to deliver the line like this, because there's no way. Natalie Portman, one of the greatest female actors of our generation, she had acted before this. She was in Leon the Professional. She was fantastic in it. And then she did like Phantom Menace, and she was doing loads of stuff around.
Keira Knightley might have something to say about that, though.
Okay. Clean some droids.
Clean that droid.
Yeah. How was she so bland delivering these lines? Like, it must have been a choice. But this is some of the dialogue that we've got. From the moment I met you, all those years ago, not a day has gone by when I haven't thought of you. And now I'm close to you again. I'm in agony. The closer I get, the worse it gets. The thought of not being with you makes my stomach turn. My mouth goes dry. I feel dizzy. I can't breathe. I'm haunted by a kiss you never should have gave me.
I hate sound.
My heart is beating, hoping
I don't
this
like
kiss
sound.
will not become a scar. You are in my very soul, tormenting me. If you are suffering as much as I am, tell me. Like, even that, me rereading that had more emotion than Anakin in that scene.
I was going to say,
there's more dynamic range in that performance.
I actually think you like this dialogue that much that you want to just you just want to re-perform it.
It's
Are you auditioning right now, Chris? Is that what it is? You're auditioning.
Yeah, it is. This is my show reel, guys. Can we make a petition to get them to remake Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones just with better acting? That's it. Leave the script the same if you want, but just act it so much better.
Yeah, just redo some scenes would be nice.
There is a bit of a turning point with Hayden Christensen in this, where it's the bit after he kills the Tusken Raiders and he gets his mum and it's at the funeral. That's like the first serious bit when he's over the grave where it actually lands.
The scenes around the death of his mother are his best acting in this. He shows real emotion. Like when he goes to save her, it's a little bit janky. Like when he's like, am I angry? Am I upset? Type thing. It gets a little bit janky there. But then when he's back in Lars's place, his acting there is genuinely good and you can understand the frustrations. Like, there's a lad that was torn away from his mother at a young age. Then he's been brought up to be told by the Jedi Order that any sort of emotion is wrong, but now he's lost the only family he's got because he doesn't have a father, he doesn't have siblings. He's lost his only family member. Of course, he's going to be damaged, but he's been told that he can't feel this way. Like, so you can understand the conflict in that moment, and he actually shows it, and I'm like, wow, he's actually acting in this scene.
It goes back to, as he's turning a bit more evil, the more we like him. And as he's killing those Tusken Raiders, the thing I like about the music score is you get the leitmotif of Darth Vader, just the subtle little notes underneath, and you already know then, and it's a nice link.
It's definitely, and it's quite interesting the bit that you were talking about, Chris, where he's back, because you see that where he understands like he's not meant to be feeling those emotions as well, like actually thinking about stuff properly now that this tragic thing's happened. What I would have really liked to see that would have probably have made that scene amazing was a bit of Force anger. A bit of like what we see in Kylo Ren in the sequels, where he gets angry and he forces something, or things start shaking, and just give you that idea that he's really powerful.
Or like when he lightsaber slashes up that
just to show some aggression.
Yeah, I think that's the best way of showing aggression with like these characters, is to do something Force related. That's all I put in my notes. I said that would have made that perfect,
because it makes it feel more primal, doesn't it? It's like he can't control his rage, like even if he doesn't like toss the hand to the side like you would expect with a Force power, maybe if he's just there like clenching his fists and like something goes flying across the room.
To me, Padme is like the fun, energetic, let's do this in this relationship, and Anakin's like, I just want to stay in and read a book, I don't want to go to Tatooine, but we've got
He's an introvert.
Padme's like, yeah, let's go. We've got to go save Obi-Wan. We don't. It's fine.
Yeah,
Let's go
exactly.
to bed.
She's really like that when we get to where this film gets a lot better, when they get to
a lot more
Geonosis.
interesting.
One last thing before we move on to the good part of this film. That CGI pear float, you mentioned it. But she takes a bite, her mouth doesn't touch it, and it just sort of disappears, and then you see crumbs fly into her mouth.
It dissolves.
How did that get through?
It dissolves more than Qui-Gon Jinn did.
Yeah, because he didn't dissolve. So yeah. Oh man, it was awful.
That scene is ridiculous. Yeah.
Like, who gave that the okay?
Who cuts a pear with a knife and fork?
This movie feels like I've never thought of that.
Why isn't the pear practical? You could have done that practically. You put the pear on a string and then you just erase the string afterwards. It would have been less CGI work.
But like we say, I don't think they realised that the combination of the two, practical, and they just heavily leaned on computer generated, which was probably a thing at that time anyway.
Lucasfilm were like, you need to win some VFX awards.
Industrial Light and Magic were like, we got the budget now, boys, let's go.
Ben Burt's just sat at the back like, I'm doing fine with sound, thanks.
He's like, let me just get this metal pole near a TV antenna.
We're done.
As we get to Geonosis, which is the best part of this whole film, when you meet Dooku for the first time, that he basically tells Obi-Wan what is going on. And it's the whole thing at the end where Yoda says to him that Dooku's turned to the dark side, you can't trust what he says. But he just told you that the Senate is being manipulated by a Sith Lord.
This is what Luke says in the sequels. He says it's all about the ego and the blindness of the Jedi. Like, they thought they were so much better and so much stronger than everyone. They thought, like, they were holier than thou. And the entire downfall came because of the oversight of the Jedi. The entire prequels are about proving that the Jedi Order wasn't the best thing. They were blinded by the Jedi Council. That proves it then, where the Jedi Council lie more than the enemies do in this. And like you said, Dooku just told the truth about everything.
When that happens, though, it also shows how Palpatine is manipulating Dooku. He sees a clarity of what's actually happening, but he doesn't realise that he's just a pawn in his larger plan.
Mm-hmm. It is a weird part, because this is before all the Clone Wars takes effect, so you imagine Dooku's only been his apprentice for a really short amount of time in between Darth Maul and now.
Because we've got to work out that was a Jedi, and then
all of a sudden Dooku
changed.
fell. Dooku was a Jedi. So is that like the last point where Dooku's like, Obi-Wan, if we do this, we can actually sort it out? And is it that moment again where the bad guy actually has the better plan again? is it one of those things, or is he just trying to be super manipulating towards Obi-Wan? Because it's an interesting thing with Dooku, because he kind of sits on the fence a little bit, where that is evil, but is he only as evil as what he is because
of what's going on?
Because people allowed it to happen,
Yeah.
and he lost trust in the Jedi as well. So it's an interesting
It's like you say,
plot point.
he could be more forgiving towards Obi-Wan because he was good friends with Qui-Gon, and he mentions that in that conversation. So he might be... Yeah, it's a good point, actually.
Yeah, that's it. The more you think with the prequels, the more you start to like forgive them, I suppose. And
I think especially with like Obi-Wan in that moment doesn't know that Dooku is with the Sith. He just knows he's left the Jedi.
yeah, he just knows he's working with separatists.
Yeah.
And that's why Dooku's like, I'm going to arrange a release. And he's like, no, you're lying, you're leading them. It's like he is, but he isn't at the same time. It's strange. So it is a weird little...
He's playing two parts, isn't he?
Yeah.
Justice for Dooku, is that what we're saying?
Justice
Yeah.
for Dooku. Justice for Dooku.
Dooku wasn't all wrong.
I think he has one of the coolest lightsabers, apart from Darth Maul.
Yeah, that's true.
His lightsaber's cooler than you realise as well, because this is proper nerdy Star Wars canon here. He's got a different type of blade, so there's different types of lightsaber blades. So the ones that like Obi-Wan and Anakin use are like broad blades, like a broadsword, whereas Dooku's is thinner, it's more like a rapier, but it also, his fighting style, it changes in length. So you've got a greater reach and stuff. You don't really
nice.
see it unless you're like in the expanded canon stuff.
Yeah.
But his lightsaber can extend in length, so he can fight from a greater distance, and it throws off your opponent because you can change it during the fight.
I like that.
Really cool lightsaber.
That is very cool, actually.
Justice for Dooku. Taken from us too soon. Rest in peace, Christopher Lee as well.
Christopher Lee,
Wow,
fantastic.
brilliant.
Everything he touches was gold. Anything with Ewan McGregor or Christopher Lee in this film are the best scenes.
So yeah, the droid factory scene for me was really cool, seeing all like that happen, the variants and stuff. It's the first bit of funny humour that Hayden Christensen had in this film, where it starts to get a little bit better. He makes the joke about how Obi-Wan's going to kill him because he's lost his lightsaber again, like he did earlier.
That's what I got in my notes. That's so on the nose as well, because Obi-Wan pretty much does kill him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Two on the nose.
I was saying to you earlier, Chris, it's like before they got to Geonosis, they took a big break in filming, and everyone went to acting school and came back.
Yeah,
It's like
they
quite
learned
funny.
how to deliver lines.
Yeah, it was quite weird. From this point, it's just straight up. It's like you've got that, you've got the bits where the relationship between Anakin and Padme gets a lot better as they go into the arena. I actually really like that bit, and the music throughout this bit with the whole Anakin and Padme theme is spot on as well. Really, really, really strong. The arena scene itself is absolutely iconic.
Amazing.
And this is at like the last 45 minutes of the film, and it is absolutely spot on. The music, like as they go around, the setting up, they meet up with Obi-Wan again. You've got the creatures come out. This whole bit is so wicked.
It's a reason to watch the film.
Yeah, if you wanted to watch Attack of the Clones, if you literally flick to the 45-minute mark, you're going to get a really good film. You don't need to see the rest of it. You need probably see that the clones are a thing, and past that, you can live with the rest of this. You know, like there's enough between Anakin and Padme here to set up Anakin's fall to be really tragic. The creatures are sick in this; they're absolutely wicked. It has also got my favorite joke of this episode in there, which is where Anakin and Obi-Wan are talking about a plan, and then they say, well, what about Padme? And then Obi-Wan looks up and he's like, well, Padme seems to be on top of things, and it's classic Ewan McGregor, thank you.
Yeah, they sidelined Jar Jar Binks because clearly nobody liked him. So they sidelined him. So then they had to make like the other characters funnier. So like you notice a bit of humor coming in with the droids in this one, but that's like the droids get funny in episode 3. But you've got C-3PO becomes the comedic character. Like you were saying, that's the best joke. For me, it's when R2-D2 like pulls his head off and he's dragging him along the sand. He's like, well, this is a bit of a drag, isn't it? And then he puts his head next to his body. He's like, I feel absolutely beside myself.
To me, I love when he's on the other droid and he's "Die, you Jedi scum" coming out of C-3PO. It's brilliant.
It's like, oh my.
and the other droid's like, "What's going on? I can't feel my legs."
I'm a bit slow. I must need to go in for repairs.
Must need maintenance.
It's like a different film. That's what I mean. It's so mad. It's like you've had Samuel L. Jackson in for like a film and a half of this trilogy, and he only just gets his first badass moment where he holds his lightsaber in front of Django and he's like, "This party's over." It's like, that's what we needed from Mace Windu. Thank you very much.
The one thing that I didn't have enough of from Samuel L. Jackson in this trilogy is no motherfuckers in there. Like, there's so many times he says a line and you can tell, like, there's an outtake there where he said it. Like,
he's just holding back.
Yeah, like when he's fighting Palpatine in episode 3, he's just there like, "You're under arrest, motherfucker." you can tell that he did it in an alternate take.
He actually only agreed to be in Star Wars if he got a purple lightsaber, didn't he? He wanted a different colour lightsaber to everybody else.
I like that.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Which, on the games, you also got a different colour one, didn't you? You got a yellow one, which I imagine comes into the universe somewhere else, but you never see it in the movie.
No, yeah, you don't.
Until Rey's in episode 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first one we see in the live-action movies, isn't it? I don't think we see any others there.
Well, all these are like real things. The reason most Jedis have blue and green crystals are because they all go to the same planet with the same caves to get the kyber crystals for it, and they only grow in blue and green because they're like the standard ones, whereas it's explained that Mace Windu, because Samuel L. Jackson wanted to be different, and he's like, "I'm only doing it if I get a different coloured lightsaber." So they've had to, in comic books, make a reason for this. He's just there like, he went on some like mad vision quest type thing and then found a completely different planet with completely different type of kyber crystals just so that he could get a purple goddamn lightsaber.
Of course,
like, the amount of loopholes they've had to go through for Samuel L. Jackson is insane.
Getting towards the end of this arena scene where you've got an ultimate Jango Fett pistol spin. We just need to take a moment to appreciate that moment.
Yeah,
he spins
that
pistol around and holsters it. That's a cool moment. The moment of this film is when the clones land. So good. So good. It's so powerful when those gunships come in and they start hitting those green lasers and just wiping out droids and stuff. They have like such a powerful intro. And
so cool.
And literally then from that moment to the end of the film, when you just get all the battle sequences across Geonosis over the plains and stuff, and just clones versus droids. It's just
you've got the
wicked.
Tanks and you've got the battle spheres and everything. Oh, it looks so cool.
Yeah, it's just, again, big scale stuff.
You also get to see the chain of command as well, where you've got generals and you start putting it together.
Yeah, you just see how calculated they are, considering they've just been bred as such, and they've just been dropped on the battlefield with Jedis as generals, and it's like, just go and do it. And it's like, it's interesting because Yoda goes to Kamino and he's the one who brings the clones over. And that's why they're like so respectful with him, because it's like he was probably the first one that went over, apart from Obi-Wan, who went and brought him in. But it's wicked. All the clone stuff in this.
My only issue is the fact that like the clones are full CGI characters in there. Like, they're all wearing helmets. Put people in practical suits and you could make them feel a bit more real. Like, that's only something watching back nowadays. Like, when I was a kid, like, I couldn't tell they were CGI people. I was like, yeah, this looks sick. But as an adult now, and you've seen plenty of good CGI, I'm like, woof, like, they're clipping through the floor a bit, like, they're all doing the same animations and stuff, like, the light's not reflecting off them properly and all this sort of stuff. It's like, if you just put a real guy there in a real piece of armor, you just needed, like, 30 of them. Well, you just copy and paste those 30. Well, you get like, it's the difference between Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you do get a real guy's head on a CGI body on the next one.
Yeah.
So it's about it's a mix in the middle, I suppose. You get a little bit of Death Star foreshadowing in this, which I remember watching when I saw it in the cinema, and I thought, that's very cool, getting it linked in, very cool. And then you get the Dooku fight. So it's interesting how Obi-Wan says to Anakin, I can't take Dooku alone. To me, that almost reminisces a bit back to his Maul fight and how he got separated, and it was like, that didn't work out. He needs to have Anakin with him to be able to win that fight. So that was really cool. Which
again goes back to like how powerful these Sith are.
Exactly right, yeah. What did you think of the Dooku fight, Matt?
I loved it. It's not... it's clearly not as strong as Duel of Fates. And the reason I forgive Obi-Wan and Anakin lying together, spooning, having a loving moment, is because Yoda walks in and we finally get to see Yoda battle Dooku.
Anakin cutting the lights while he's got two lightsabers as well. Like he's got a green and a blue one. And like they give him the full-on hero moment when in the next film they need to suddenly heel turn him into the biggest villain in cinematic history. Come on now, like you're giving him like the big hero moments. Like you seem to like be redeeming him a bit too much. Like at least have him like fight dirty or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna wrap up Attack of the Clones because that's pretty much the best and worst parts of this film that we've
The only other thing is, again, the on the nose, the final scene with Chancellor Palpatine looking over the clone army, and you have just the Imperial March play.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
on there.
If you didn't get it by now, he's the bad guy.
That goes back to how good the music is. So once you develop a good leitmotif, which is what makes me love this soundtrack, and going back into audio and all that, that carries the weight of it anyway without having to be on the nose. Like, you're like a father to me. All that.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that because that music would carry that connotation anyway.
Well, that's the thing. It's meant to be the hero army is stood there with like the leader of now, like, he's the one that's going to bring peace to the galaxy type thing. Let's play the evil theme.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that this whole trilogy doesn't have a moment where you see that Palpatine is Sidious until it's clear to everybody else? They obviously look and sound the same. You can put two and two together, but it's cool how there's not like a moment where you see Palpatine talking to the Senate and then he goes in and puts his cloak on and then becomes Sidious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's cool how it puts it in. Like, if you didn't get it by now, this is him. You know what I mean? It
also makes me imagine you see Palpatine discussing politics with people, and then I just imagine he's running somewhere. Like, quickly get your robe on. Got a video call. Well done, Dooku. You're doing well. I'm surprised he's
got
not
a quick
gassed.
Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, he's like, I'm late. Come on, let's go.
Conference call.
Boys, is my audio working?
It does make you wonder, like, if you just got all, like, the Jedi in a room and they just got a picture of Palpatine and they just got a bit of paper and covered up half of his face. They were like,
is
it?
A
second.
Is it?
But where is he doing these Zoom conference calls from? Like, just check his office.
Imagine if somebody walks into the wrong room.
Like, when
he's just
Vader's having his mask on. Just, oh, sorry, didn't mean to disturb you.
You just see Palpatine with a cloak on, and you see a hologram of like Darth Maul knelt in front of him. You're like, oh, like wow, wow.
So speaking of Sith, we have to get on to the third episode, which is Revenge of the Sith. But just before we do that, and we speak about the dark side of stuff, there's a dark side to this film that I found on Disney Plus for Attack of the Clones.
Oh,
it's the biggest crime of this whole film's release. And it's the unforgivable, rough as fuck deleted scenes that are on this Disney Plus version. Has anyone seen the deleted scenes from Geonosis on here?
I would have watched them when I was a kid on the DVD copy, but
I think when you remind me, I'll know.
It is funnier comedy than the first half of Attack of the Clones. All I'm gonna say, right, and you're gonna thank me when you go back and watch this. It's got freaking Comic Sans to describe what should be happening in the scene. I
love it.
Not. Honestly, just go back. The deleted scene is called "The Droids Switch Off and Switch Back On Again," and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen, and I had to switch it off. I was like, I can't watch.
I'm done.
I can't watch another 60 seconds of this, and there's only 3 minutes of it. So before we get on to Revenge of the Sith, we have to do Star Wars, our Star Wars for Attack of the Clones. We'll start with you, Matt.
Star Wars, 100%.
I'm gonna say Star Wars as well. Like, you got 2/3 of a bad film here.
It's tough because at the 45-minute mark, it gets very good. The action sequences and the lightsaber fighting's cool, and the whole
I'm haunted by
scene.
a kiss you never should have gave me.
I don't like
I
sand.
hate sand.
Okay, all right.
It's dry, it's coarse, and it gets everywhere.
Would you like some Pearson?
I'm trying to be forgiving for it, but I feel like I'm going to get bullied if I don't say Starballs. So,
also, Sam made a good point before the podcast, and he forgot to say it in it. Like the absolute irony of when he's at his mum's funeral, he just starts grabbing handfuls of sand. He talks about how much he hates it, and he's just there grabbing handfuls of it.
How's no one picked up on that?
Of it.
That's brilliant.
Thank you for remembering that.
Get the memes made, people. Get the memes made.
I know. There's so many memes that were undiscovered. So, okay, collectively, we'll give it a Starballs then. That's fine.
But you as an individual, Sam?
Oh, I don't know, man. It's a tough one. Like, when I was younger, I loved it. And to be honest with you, I just switched off during all the boring bits of this film. So... yeah, no, you know what? Yeah, Starballs. I would only literally watch the last half of it. I wouldn't want to watch any more of it. Yeah. So,
to me, a good film, you shouldn't have to switch off throughout any of it.
Yeah, that's a good
And there was politics in episode 1, and I even sat through that and was like, okay.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Cool, Starballs. So on to I would say the best one out of the 3. 100%.
Oh, I mean, save your review till the end, Sam. Don't show
reveal
your hand
cards,
too soon.
Yeah.
Oh,
Play your
spoilers.
cards close to your chest, Sam.
It's got the best intro sequence out of all of them.
By far.
That cold open.
Battle of Coruscant, the Clone Wars are like coming to the end. It's sick. It's so sick. It's like just so full on, straight into the action. It's very much to me like The Last Jedi cold open. It's like that's one of my other favorite openings of the film, but it's I think it's wicked. I think that whole space fight's awesome.
Well, we said it with the jump from Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones, but again with the jump from Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith, the production quality just went up again. Like the CGI in this film is nearly flawless. Like there's a couple of dodgy CGI things, but they're from a distance. But like it looks so good. That Battle of Coruscant looked phenomenal.
It doesn't spoon feed you. You've got to do a bit of detective work of what happened between episode 2 and episode 3. And that's what I like about throughout the whole prequels, these subtle references to other Jedi, these, this battle.
So this point here is where I'm watching this and I am seeing every single link in from the Clone Wars TV series. There is a lot going on in Revenge of the Sith that you get more out of if you've seen that. It's funny to think that at this point in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin's had an apprentice throughout this whole time. Yeah. Like it's crazy, and I'm going to be careful what I say because Chris hasn't. You guys, I don't think have watched all of it anyway, and we're at a bit where it's only just coming to an end. So I'm not going to say anything, but it definitely makes it interesting if you are up to date with Clone Wars and then go back and watch just this out of the prequels. It's definitely.
I would like it if the end of the last ever episode of Clone Wars, like the last 5 minutes of it was like the first part of the Battle over Coruscant. Would be pretty cool.
That would be very cool.
Because we join in the middle of the fight, don't we?
Well, put it on your Christmas list, Chris. Put it on your Christmas list. That's all I'm going to say.
Pray to George Lucas and Dave Filoni.
We've had your audition already, and now you're pitching script ideas.
Yeah. This is what we do on this podcast. I pitch script ideas and ask Disney to give us money for us to write Avengers films.
To be honest, that's probably something I'll say at the end is what I want next in Star Wars.
Well, there is going to be another trilogy, so it's going to be interesting to talk about what
we'll have a Q&A session with you at the end of this episode.
Love it. Okay.
For those that have got through the 2 odd hours of this, then hats off to you.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, I mean, to summarise where they're up to at this point, Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship is much better, much funnier, just spot on. They're actually friends in this rather than trying to outdo each other. They're doing it a bit like Gimli and Legolas in Lord of the Rings.
100%. It's a friendly banter.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the droids are funnier, like Chris said. That's definitely a big takeaway. You've got General Grievous in this.
Oh, just before you do that, can we talk about how amazing R2 is at defending himself?
Oh, R2
the oil slick, the fire.
R2 is the real Sith Lord right now.
He's been manipulating from the beginning. Right, we've got to
is a
start our
monster.
own fan theory here.
R2 is a secret monster, honestly. He takes out 2 super battle droids on his own, no problem in this.
Yeah.
Just drench him in oil, set him alight.
Yeah, honestly, he's a beast. General Grievous is a wicked character. There's an interest.
I remember seeing that design for the first time in the cinema and being like, yo!
Yeah.
Like,
Droid
that's so cool.
with
Yeah, what an
lightsabers.
idea, a droid. Yeah. 4 arms. He's asthmatic, but you forgive it.
Yeah.
Go for it, mate.
He was organic, apparently, and then
You see, he has that heart, and
he was made in.
And the flesh in the eyes.
Yeah, he like upgraded
yeah.
himself. He like got obsessed with upgrading himself, and that's why he became the way he did. That's quite interesting.
that's so cool.
An interesting little fact is when Anakin says to Grievous that you're a bit shorter than what I expected. If you've watched the Clone Wars animated series, they don't, in all 7 seasons of that, they never meet. Bear in mind, there's like 14 episodes in a season, and there's a lot of General Grievous.
wow.
20 episodes.
Yeah, there's a lot of it, but there's not a single episode where they meet face to face. Because I saw that and I was like, hang on a second, no way. And yeah, it's true. They never actually met before this.
It's also a reference to Leia's "you're a bit short to be a stormtrooper."
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah, of course.
And also in season 1 of Clone Wars, like, is it a running theme throughout the Clone Wars that Grievous keeps losing his legs?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he keeps losing his legs. Maybe that's why he's shorter. Like, each model, like, they can't get enough metal to make the legs long enough.
You actually get a bit in the animated series where, and it's not a spoiler, you see General Grievous's lair, and it's just full of spare parts.
Yeah, it's in season 1. I've seen that one. That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. He loses his legs.
Brilliant.
And he's got this
Get fist to my man.
He's got this little henchman droid who always repairs him, and it's like, it's funny stuff.
Like a sassy little, like, nurse droid.
Yeah. Do you know who actually voices him?
Oh, no.
Matt Wood from Skywalker Sound. He's actually one of the sound engineers. Does
Oh,
the
nice.
voice for him. Yeah.
Cool.
That's
There's
cool.
an interesting.
I
little
even
fact.
think Grievous's bodyguards are cool.
Yeah, the
That shows how good of the character is.
Yeah.
If your bodyguards are almost outdoing you.
You get a lot of cool droid variations in this, as well as the end of Clone Wars. You get the super battle droids and everything, but it just starts to like knock it up and just world build to hell. Another cool little action bit that I really liked at the beginning of this, and it's such a small thing, but where the 2 cruisers go side by side and they have that almost naval cannon fight between them.
Yeah, the broadside battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of bits like that in Star Wars films between the ships that relate back to kind of like World War II and actual military fighting. So like in Last Jedi, you have bombs dropping, and then you have this whole naval side by side thing as well. It's pretty sweet. It's almost like the small starfighters are actual fighter planes, and the big ones are like battleships. It's pretty wicked little parallel there.
Especially in Rogue One.
Yeah, for sure. Did
Well, I was going to mention, before we forget about it, the fight with Count Dooku. Before we
yeah,
even
of
see
course, yeah.
Grievous.
Yeah. Do you
Oh,
Do it!
the look on Dooku's face when he realizes he's been betrayed?
By his own master. Yeah.
It's at the flick of it's such a happy, well done, Anakin. Do it. It's amazing.
Kill him, Anakin. Kill him. Leave your master.
Shows how good the acting is.
My notes on here is just like, this is the best in the trilogy, hands down. People are actually acting. There's real emotions here. I don't need to write any more notes because this is good.
Oh, I have 0 notes about episode 3 because I've watched it that many times out of the 3 of them. Can we just talk a little earlier when Anakin jumps out the elevator, jumps back in, Obi-Wan pulls a lightsaber on him. He could have just ended the film and saved us
credits.
a dreadful story.
He could have literally have saved the galaxy in that one moment.
and not have known it.
Just erase the original trilogy.
He just has depression about letting Qui-Gon down, goes suicidal, but it's okay because he doesn't know what he's actually saved us from.
You don't need no high ground.
Well, that's another thing. So it just becomes then in like the Star Wars franchise that if you got the high ground, you win. Obi-Wan in the Duel of the Fates had the low ground. He was in a hole.
Yeah.
Like where was the high ground? I think he did a bloody flip over him, summoned a lightsaber, and cut Darth Maul in half. Low ground, mate.
It's just
Low ground's the new meta, I'm telling you.
Such a bad way for Maul to go out.
I know. Well, he did come
He
back
got
with
cool
a
robot
vengeance.
legs, so it's fine.
He got spider legs before he got robot legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The spider legs were the coolest ones.
He got 2 sets of robot legs, actually, interestingly enough. That's a story for another time.
Yeah, this is on my what I want next.
Yeah.
So
I totally forgot that the Separatist ship crashes on Coruscant when I watched this back. That is pretty cool.
So the bit that I forgot about this is the fact that they only end up landing like a third of the ship. Like the big main hull of the ship breaks off, right? So think of
Completely
it like
chopped off. Coruscant
is Emucropolis. I can't remember what the word is, but it's like the entire planet is a city. So the entire planet is inhabited, right? That is in the atmosphere. That's crashing to Earth. Like that's the size of like a city falling onto the planet. That's some like Age of Ultron shit. Like how many people died from that and nobody mentions anything. Like most of a Star Cruiser falls out of orbit onto your house.
We do realize firefighters exist in the Star Wars universe, though.
Yeah.
and they are doing a great job.
Credit to our key workers. In these times.
Another happy landing. Another happy landing. We get a joke. We get so many jokes in this first scene.
I think we've lost something. Oh no, it'd be fine. By the way, isn't it weird how calm Palpatine is throughout this whole thing? If you think about any other politician during a moment like that, he's just been rescued by 2 Jedi from death, and then he's in a crashing cruiser,
But
and then he's just so calm.
He is secretly a Sith Lord.
Well, of
So I
course.
suppose
premonitions
worst
of the
case
future.
scenario, he can just go, I can get out of this fine. It's all part of his bigger plan.
Yeah, for sure.
He would just Darth Plagueis his soul into Anakin.
Well, that's another thing, isn't it? He goes, oh, leave Obi-Wan. Come on, Anakin.
Yeah, that's it. He's like...
Leave him behind, there's no time.
Yeah.
Also, so Dooku, he has the awful CGI flip. That's like the only bad bit of CGI in this entire film. And then he just like lowers an entire platform, crushing Obi-Wan's legs. How does Obi-Wan just get up a few minutes later and walks about like, you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Your legs need to be amputated after that.
He had force healing a lot earlier than what the Rise of Skywalker did, I'll tell you that. So let's move this on a little bit. So a little Easter egg that we get after the Battle of Coruscant is that you do get the Millennium Falcon landing in the background, which is interesting. It's in the bit where you see all the ships coming in, the transports and stuff. The Millennium Falcon's right over there. All the baby talk between Anakin and Padme, like those moments, had they been in Attack of the Clones, would be terrible. But in this film,
100%, yeah.
It really does like land, and I'm already thinking
they're speaking like humans.
Yeah, and I'm already thinking about that moment in Mustafar where he chokes her, and I'm like, oh, it's so tragic. It's really tragic. And I've put
This is the biggest reaction to someone saying I'm pregnant. Just abandon the child and move on,
Jesus.
No need to take down galaxies over it. Just disappear.
If you've been watching too much Always Sunny in Philadelphia with dumpster babies, that's what's going on.
Do you know, I've never seen
Dumpster
it.
babies. Put it in a
good.
space dumpster.
It's like such a hard balance between, and I'm jumping the gun a bit, but it's a hard balance of whether is Anakin's fall at that moment the most tragic thing, or is Order 66 the most tragic thing? It's like those two are very, very, very close for me for this film.
Yeah,
I think like I don't want to do spoilers for any other stuff. So like, I mean TV series, I mean games, I mean all sorts of stuff. I don't want to touch spoilers.
Yeah.
But once you see outside of this film the impact of that in everything else, it's like you realise like how hard it is. And it's like, it's so solid. I'm jumping the gun quite far there with Order 66, but
It is a very dark film, though.
100%,
We're dealing with death, a massive betrayal that's been in the works for over 10 years from the sounds of it. And from what you've told me about Palpatine knocking up Anakin's mum, it's even longer than that.
Yeah.
So it's got to be this huge, massive thing. And that's what makes this film so good.
That's it. And I mean, to touch on the sequels a little bit, it's one of those things where like you do forgive Palpatine coming back a little bit because of that. but it's just the way that they did it I didn't think landed as well for me. But there's a lot of conversation between Anakin and Palpatine in this, which I mentioned earlier. It's more in this film where he calls him son a lot.
Conversation about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Well, while we're on the topic of it, yeah, we may. If anyone's going to make you wonder whether he's a Sith Lord, if that's going to set your Sith radar off, of course, a dark tale of a Sith
if
Lord.
If you didn't know.
How did he not figure it out in that moment?
He must have had his suspicions because he was actually being told to spy on him at that point by the council.
Yeah.
So he really didn't like that, did he?
No, and this is the thing, is like you've got to remember Palpatine was there when he was a kid, and he's kind of been like this father figure that, well, depending on how you look at it, it is his dad, but it's his father figure that he never had, where it wasn't Obi-Wan who was constantly trying to better him. He was always trying to say, I think you should be doing better. I think you should be better than Obi-Wan. And to be told to be like spying on that and to think that he is the orchestra of everything going on, it like even if we like take a moment to think about that in real life, that is like hard. And I think the way they portray that in the film is pretty much spot on. Like he has this really big struggle in the film where there's a moment where he grasses him into the council and then changes his mind, and it's like that's very interesting, that scene where you have no dialogue and it's no music and it's just a drone while he's at the temple and Padme's at her place, and they're looking at each other across the city, and it's almost like that thing of saying, wait, if I do this I'm gonna lose you. And it's that thing of being like, no, I need to go and change what I've done. And he still struggles with that moment right up until he cuts Mace's hands off.
Yeah.
And it shows the conflict that he's actually having, how hard of a decision this is.
Yeah, and that's
it proves in that moment as well. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy is what it is. Like, for everything he tries to do to stop it from happening, he's making it happen more.
Yeah, and that's why this film is just leagues apart in terms of how it is, and so me and you, Chris, ages ago, we ranked all the Star Wars movies, and I think Revenge of the Sith is quite high on mine because of this, and it's done a lot more, a lot cleverer.
We've also got Anakin being refused the rank of Master from the Council as well, which he's been nothing but a dick throughout the entire Clone Wars, throughout everything. He's constantly going against orders from literally. The first time we see him as a kid, he's just constantly going against orders and everything. He's going off destroying blockades and stuff like that. He's constantly doing the wrong thing and somehow coming out on the right side of shit. And he wonders why they don't grant him the rank of Master.
The way he's like that, it almost makes you question what would it have been like if Qui-Gon was his master? And how would he have done that different? Because Qui-Gon was always seen differently by the Council, of having different viewpoints. And I always feel like that's how Anakin is sort of judged, but Anakin isn't as wise as Qui-Gon Jinn is.
It's weird because bringing it back to Qui-Gon was always the one who he would disagree with the council, and then he would just do what he wanted anyway.
Yeah,
but he got away with it. So it's kind of weird because I guess Anakin's just disagreeing with the council, but
it's almost like Anakin's Qui-Gon's had such an impression on Anakin that it's like, well, this is it now. This is it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
You notice as well, as soon as Qui-Gon dies, like, Obi-Wan does start to take that role as well. Like, he disagrees with Yoda, and he's like, I'm going to train him regardless. Like, and Obi-Wan still does, like, disagree with the council, but he bites his tongue about it. He doesn't say it to the council. I think that's why Anakin gets in so much trouble, is because he will blur out what he's saying. He doesn't have a filter. Obi-Wan knows when to say stuff and when not to say stuff.
I also just noticed that my autocorrect changed it to Kashyyyk and the Cookies instead of Kashyyyk and the Wookiees.
Kashyyyk and the Cookies is the name of my next band.
It's also the biggest look we get at Wookiees in general.
That world, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the biggest thing we get of that planet, so it's pretty
And
cool.
the return of Chewbacca.
That was a nice little touch. We get hello there.
Remember
hello
Chewbacca?
there. I made it a point that was the first thing I said to you on this podcast was hello there when introducing me, because that's how much I love that scene.
General Kenobi.
It just shows like how far Obi-Wan's come come, because he has the audacity just to drop on only him there and be like, how you doing?
Hello there.
Yeah, hello there.
Hello there.
The best part is he weighs it up before he jumps down. He thinks about it quite hard, and then he's like, nah, just go for it.
I'm doing this, yeah.
Yeah.
The joke will
I think
pay
that's
off.
Anakin rubbing off on him, I think is what that is. He's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I've got this young apprentice. He's
like, could you imagine? Like, we nearly didn't get Luke getting trained in the way of the Jedi because Obi-Wan nearly killed himself multiple times. Have you ever heard about the tragedy of Jedi General Obi-Wan?
Kenobi
the stupid.
Kenobi the clumsy.
Kenobi the clumsy. There we go. He just used to toss himself out a window as he went fighting an entire army by himself.
Look, so we've touched a lot on the characters and stuff. We've touched a lot on, really, when I watched Revenge of the Sith back, I realised how much doesn't happen in this film, but it just happens very, very, very well. I think it's literally the halfway point of the film we get Order 66. That is pretty much bang halfway through it, so it moves
When I
pretty
checked
quick.
the timestamp today, I was surprised by how early everything happens.
Yeah, it does move
In fact,
fast.
I was watching it today. I was making dinner, so if work listen, I have been watching Star Wars while working, but it's okay because I got my work done. But I went down.
We'll take it out in the edit.
It's all right. They never listen this far in. But I was making dinner, and I told Jess, I was like, hope you don't mind, I've got this on, explain what I was doing. And she went, all right. I went, there's not long left anyway, it's almost finished. Order 66 is happening. Clicked it, an hour left. I was like, oh my God, what's going on?
Halfway point.
Yeah, it's mad.
That's what I mean. It's like there's not as much that happens, but it's just done really well. It's just done really, really well.
Does that happen on the 66th minute of the film? That's something we need to check, because it's around the hour mark, isn't it?
It is around the hour mark.
What if it's the 66th minute?
That would be amazing.
Oh, jeez.
I wish there was more of it, though, because it's almost just montaged. That's my only criticism about this film.
Yeah.
I wish, not that I want to see Jedi die, but I'd have more care for it.
Yeah, I mean, it does a job of like bouncing between all the planets to give you an idea of scale. But that's why I don't want to touch on it, because I don't want to say which properties it happens in. But it happens in other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it makes much more of a big deal about it in those things that makes it hit harder. And I'd say questionably, the way you get Order 66 and Revenge of the Sith is the lightest that you get it.
It is.
It hits you a lot harder in every other Star Wars property where Order 66 happens.
I think also, if you watch the Clone Wars, which we talk about it a lot, but it happens in between two of these films. Like, it's 7 seasons of a show that happens between two of these films. It's important to the story. But you start to really connect with all of these other Jedi that you see. Like, Kit Fisto doesn't even get a line. He's in 2 shots of the film and then he dies. And, like, I remember we had the 2D Clone Wars show when we were kids, and Kit Fisto had the best episode of that with the underwater fight, with his underwater lightsaber and everything. And you get episodes with Kit Fisto in the Clone Wars, and then he just gets killed off so unceremoniously. He doesn't even take a strike towards Darth Sidious. It's because Disney love dead parents and dead parental figures, but most of the content that we've got from Star Wars and the expanded universe since Disney have had it, they're all like Padawans whose masters died in Order 66. Like, we've had like 7 different characters that I could probably name right now, which have all had their masters killed during Order 66. Yeah. There's like 4 novels about it. Like, major characters in other Star Wars properties have all had the masters killed in Order 66.
Doesn't that show the scope of like how often they're taking on these apprentices, though? That they can keep up with the Jedi Masters, but then all of a sudden, like, is this a new Jedi apprentice? Let him get away because we don't know.
That's Anakin's job, to thin out the ranks when he turns.
Yeah.
All those younglings so they don't start a new Jedi Order.
But just to round up the Order 66 thing as well, it's not just the Jedi, it's the clones too. Most clones are not called by numbers, they're called by names and stuff, and the commanders, and they build up big rapport and stuff. You know, you got Commander Cody with General Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is is one that you see in there. But you've got to think, like in the Clone Wars series at the beginning, you've got like Fives, Rex, Echo, you've got all those guys and stuff. You've got you've got to think like there's ones in training facilities and all sorts of stuff. They build these relationships up with troopers that are loyal to them, and then all of a sudden they just like turn around and just do it without saying anything, like just literally a flick of a switch. So that's what makes it that much more hard hitting, I suppose.
It hits even more when you see Commander Cody give Obi-Wan Kenobi his lightsaber back. He goes up this rock, and then all of a sudden you've got Wrinkly Man Emperor Palpatine on my
ballsack face, McGee.
On my disc, and then it's like execute Order 66. Yeah, I know what that is. See you later, pal.
Yeah, that's it. It's literally so crazy.
It's just the flick of a switch, the twist, and not the twist because you know it happens, but the scope of how it happens.
I think when you know the expanded universe as well, like we see throughout the Clone Wars, they're going out doing all these missions, all these different excursions, and everyone starts to really care for it, like the clones and like especially the named ones. Like they become like a small family, like the 501st Battalion become like a close family and stuff. But then like you're like, why would they just turn on everyone? But they've got an inhibitor chip in the head, haven't they?
Yeah, so this is what I didn't want to touch on.
Which makes them do it.
So, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's actually put into them from children when they're being bred in the cloning facility. So
I imagine that was something that was put in when the Order of the Clones was put in.
The Kaminoan cloners knew about it. That's how deep it goes.
Jesus.
So this was put in place like 10 years before Attack of the Clones when the Order was put in.
Go watch Clone Wars, the TV series.
Oh, I'm 100% doing it.
It touches
I'm
on
doing
this.
it.
Yeah, it's
Are you
very,
sponsored by them? Because the
I'm
amount we
sponsored by
spoke
Disney
about them.
I'll be honest, like there's parts of the TV series for me that beats the films. Like for an animated show, like you would think, oh, it's going to be so childish. It's like it's going to be so hard, but it goes really dark. It's really, really cool.
There's a reason why Ahsoka Tano is one of the fan favorite characters nowadays.
Yeah.
See, even I know who that is.
Yeah.
I have seen a clip of Yoda and some clones out and they're on a mission, and that hooked me straight away. I don't know the details of what, but yeah, I am going to watch it.
We're currently on season 7, and this is like the last bit, and I've been talking Chris's ear off for ages about it. But the last 4 episodes are done in parts, and it's the first time they put the Lucasfilm logo in front of the episodes. Right. And I tell you, it's like they've just shoved the budget into these last 4. It's like 4 parts of a film. It's so wicked. But let's wrap up Revenge of the Sith, because we've literally got a few more bits to talk about. Because after Order 66, we pretty much get straight to Mustafar. I
was about to say, we land on Mustafar.
Yeah, you get Kenobi's killed Grievous. That's about as short and what it needs to be.
It was very quick,
very quick.
So uncivilized.
Very much a weak point, though. Very much a weak point underneath. Makes you wonder how he survives all that time in the Clone Wars. I'm telling you.
Yeah, just have a big gap in the middle of your chest, which is just where your heart is. Perfect for a blaster shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that time upgrading, and you can't just put something in the way of it.
It's like the Death Star. Why'd you have one big hole that leads to your central reactor core?
So we could talk for a bit about the Sidious versus Yoda fight, but that's nothing in comparison to the Anakin versus
It's a nice
fight.
parallel, because it does jump back and forth, and you can see similarities in what's going on. But like you say, what takes the show is Anakin and Obi.
I'm going to say that is the best lightsaber fight in the whole Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
Oh, 100% agree.
100%.
Because it's got the emotion to back it up.
It's got the soundtrack.
It's got the impact. It's got the soundtrack.
It's got the sound. It's got the lead up to it. That engagement they have.
I was about to say, like, we've been like dripping into the cheesy dialogue, and yes, this dialogue when it's taken individually is cheesy, but it works in this moment because they're actually emoting, they're actually acting. Like these moments hit. It's just there, like, in my new empire, your new empire. That would be so cheesy, but it lands and it works. You turned her against me. Like the pure rage, and like his eyes are going all red and distorted. And it's so good.
The whole "your new empire" bit is like Obi-Wan just being like, "What?" It's like, what
are you cracked, bro?
That guy has got so in your head, man. Have you seen his face? He's got Sith Lord written all over it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and like
hands
you
down.
get the epic fight, like it just goes on for so long, and you get the iconic moments, like the lava flute behind him while they've got hold of each other's lightsabers and everything. Like I remember memorizing that fight choreography as a kid and acting it out with my mates. Like that was the best goddamn lightsaber fight I've ever seen.
It is the environment it's in as well makes it,
and it's so
cinematic
perfect.
and yeah.
Darth Vader's castle in the future is there. It's like where he's lost Padme, and you know, let's just remember they have that little force push fight off before they even get to the lava fields. It's like it's just these are all the good ideas. These someone's not been paid enough.
It's like somebody finally like sat George Lucas down and was like, let me take a look at the draft of your script and get rid of all the shit first before you start shooting. Like,
I just watched Attack of the Clones, let me check.
I mean, they did get a lot of criticism leading up to this, so this was the film where they had to nail it. It kind of, in my opinion, it maybe did a little bit of the reverse of what the sequel trilogy did. I liked The Force Awakens. I liked The Last Jedi more. I think that was my favourite because it was so different to what we got. But it was kind of like they were trying to do fan service that much by The Rise of Skywalker that they made mistakes, where I feel like with the prequels, they did fan service the right way in Revenge of the Sith. They got it right. And it's it's wicked, man. I'd love to see Anakin, Hayden Christensen and Obi-Wan on screen together again. Like, I know
100%.
it's going to be so difficult. It probably won't happen. But
live action Clone Wars,
or if we got something in this Obi-Wan TV series,
Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader a couple times in that.
Bit of a broken mask. Get a bit of Hayden Christensen in there. Bring him back. People want him back. Everyone wants him. No,
everyone likes him again.
This is where he justifies his Anakin role, and you go, yeah, I fully buy into it.
People wanted him in Rise of Skywalker. People were gutted that we didn't get Anakin, Hayden Christensen, in Rise of Skywalker. It's like, just listen to the people. Put him in there. Get him giving Kylo a pep talk. This isn't what you should be doing. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know, forget
like maybe
Harrison
instead
Ford.
of him just seeing Han, maybe he sees Han and Vader. Like, he sees Anakin as well.
There's someone you need to talk to, kid.
Yeah.
Oh. Ooh.
Especially because they put such an emphasis on Darth Vader's mask throughout the sequel. We'll talk about that in the episode 3.
We'll finish up. Well, let's wrap up Rise of
I'm running low on phone battery here, guys.
Right, let's wrap up Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, the lightsaber duel's wicked. The end of the film.
You were a brother to me.
Let's polish off the last little bit. You get Anakin's transformation into Vader. It's cool.
Yeah.
The no is a bit hit and miss.
No.
However, the emotions there allow it. The guy's
he has just lost. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy's just lost his arms and legs, and probably the use of his normal voice. So.
The one thing I didn't like about this ending was the fact that they were like, oh yeah, Padme's just given up the will to live. You've just given birth to 2 beautiful twins. You don't give up the will to live just because your boyfriend tried to choke you. Like, they should have just said, she got choked too much. Just say that. Like, say that Anakin killed her.
It was
and
through
that
the
makes
Force.
the tragedy even worse, instead of just being like, oh, she's given up the will to live. That's the one thing I didn't like about this ending.
So when a woman has a child, there's a chemical released in the brain that stops you from seeing the child as protein and eat and need to survive. It's like goes back to caveman times, so you would protect the child so no animal would come and eat it, or you'd eat it out of starvation. That shows how heartless she is, that she just goes, let him starve. I'm
Matt's
done.
on a proper like anti-Padme train with these prequels.
100%. She runs a sex ring, she's grooming children, and then is happy to see them die and starve. Keira Knightley was better.
And on that bombshell,
If you had asked 12-year-old me who was better, I definitely would have said Keira Knightley. Riding high on those Pirates of the Caribbean films, I would have been with
That's a different episode.
Speaking of Padme, there is that bit at the funeral where she's got the necklace that Anakin gives her in the first one. That hit me a little bit when I first watched
little,
this. Yeah.
nice reference back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see you wearing it a lot, actually, in the third one, don't you? And Anakin even references it.
Yeah. You get Qui-Gon is able to communicate through the Force. That comes back. Yoda puts him in touch with him. Again, watch the Clone Wars TV series to get a bit more on that. That's all I'm saying.
Ooh,
I won't
okay.
say where it is. I'm just going to say it's explained a bit more. And also,
This entire episode was just a promo for season 7 of Clone Wars.
it is out. It is available on Disney Plus. They're not paying me to say this. I think you should just go watch it.
Sam's paying to say
Look
this.
at
Sam's
that.
paying for Disney Plus.
You can pay me to say this, Disney, if it's,
Disney, if you want to sponsor the podcast, we will take it.
yeah, I can retire.
Give us that Disney money. We've been employed by you
That
once
Disney
before, but that's
money.
a different story. We actually did get a 20p pay packet from Disney one time, but that's a different story. That's before the podcast.
That's a very long story for another time. That we'll tell you after the podcast.
Ooh, I need to know this. But yeah, what more do you need, Disney? We've had script suggestions, auditions, and Clone Wars repetitively said for 2.5 hours.
And we also think the movies that you did weren't as good. So
Yeah.
Except for The Last Jedi, we'll defend that one till our dying breath.
the TV
We like that one.
series are good. TV series are good.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
Sorry. The last little scene. So we've talked about the Vader transformation. We talked about the Qui-Gon. We talked about Padme's funeral. The last little bit you get on this before we go back to Tatooine is Vader as full Vader with the Emperor watching the construction of the Death Star, which is very cool. You get Tarkin in this. I was chatting with Chris before when I was just watching the last few minutes of it, and I was like, is that meant to be Tarkin? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There you
My only issue is he looks the same age there as he does 20 years later. And he looks like he was about to croak in that final scene.
Yeah,
He looks too old. Like they should have de-aged him a little bit. But this was before de-aging was happening.
Fine jawline. That's all it is.
It's a distinctive head, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not mixing up Tarkin anywhere else.
Look, guys, that's the end of my notes. Has anyone else got anything else for?
I was
Revenge of the
literally
Sith?
just about to say we go on to Star Wars or Star Wars. It's probably where we go with this.
Star Wars, clearly.
Yeah, I agree.
Star Wars all around.
This is the best prequel.
Absolutely.
100%.
So my next question was going to be, should we rank the prequels? But I think we've all agreed that it's Clone Wars, Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith.
100%.
Nice and easy.
So we're not going to rank these. I'm going to ask you, Matt Pearson, one of 3 Matts. We're going to ask each of you at the end of these long conversations to rate your top 3 Star Wars movies, not just in this trilogy, but across all of them. So
what's your perfect
I can
trilogy?
do anything.
Ideally, it could be any of the Skywalker Saga films, so 1 through to 9, and you can also choose Rogue One or Solo as well, if you want to.
Any of the canon stories, yeah.
Okay, great.
No Ewok Adventures. I know you're going to say it.
And no Christmas specials, no holiday specials.
This is the whole reason I came on. Revenge of the Sith is number 1.
Very cool.
That's why I'm defending the prequels. Return of the Jedi. Oh, actually, I'm tempted to say Empire. I'm saying Empire.
Okay.
And Rogue One.
Yeah,
because
so
Rogue
excellent.
One, you had The Force Awakens out, which I got really annoyed in the cinema. Because to me, I just saw the same story. I saw through the shiny new droid and all that. But Rogue One was a story I sort of knew, but I never got to see. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's a respectable top 3.
I've got one question for you.
Oh, okay.
Because we had so many Jedi in this. Other than Anakin, Obi-Wan, or Yoda, who was your favourite Jedi in the prequels? Ki-Adi-Mundi, Asajj Ventress, no, she's a Sith.
Mace Windu.
Mace Windu?
Mace Windu.
Nice.
100%.
Very
Just
good.
for
What's
the
yours, Sam?
audacity of having the purple
He
lightsaber.
walks the bit of a line, Mace Windu, as well. He's like a little bit in the grey side of the Jedi, so it's a respectable choice. It's a respectable choice, you know.
I think I spoke too much about Kit Fisto. Everyone knows that's probably my favourite.
Yeah.
Barrister Faye, Luminara,
I'm going to vote Plo Koon.
Plo Koon, another good one.
He's the guy.
I got to do more research here.
His starfighter gets shot down in Order 66. He's got like
With the mask. and
Yeah,
that
I
face.
know exactly who you mean, yeah.
Yeah, very good general in the Clone Wars. That's the nerdiest thing I'm going to say in this. And on that note, we're going to wrap this podcast up. Matt, do you want to tell us where we can find An Earful Podcast?
Yeah, it's at An Earful Podcast everywhere. Just type it into Google. I'm sure you're competent enough to do it. We've had previous guests like Def Havana, Sean Smith from the Blackout and Sapling podcast, and a bunch of other amazing bands. It's worth listening to if you like music.
And where can people find you as well, Matt?
Oh, at Dwums on Instagram is probably the most used one. DWUMSS.
Very cool. You do a bit of music
I used to play
production as
drums.
well, don't you? You do like some electronic stuff.
Yeah, I fiddle around with synthesizers and pretend to make music. That's pretty much what I do. And then because I can't do that very well, I talk to people about it on the podcast.
Nice. Look, it's been nice not having to finish off telling people. I mean, we're going to have to do this anyway, but not telling people where to find us straight away. It's been nice to have someone on.
It's weird when you said, where can people find me? I thought, why would they want to? But maybe you
I'm
can...
not giving away my address on the podcast, guys.
So my postcode is... but yeah, before you do you know what I'd love to see in Star Wars, which is probably in the Clone Wars?
Go on.
I'd like to see Darth Vader in his prime and actually like plowing down people, which I don't know if you do get to see.
You need to
Rebels.
Rebels, you get a bit of that in Rebels, yeah.
Okay. Qui-Gon Jinn being this all-powerful master that we know he is, but we just see the end of it.
And we need a prequel series then.
Yeah, a prequel series I'd have.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon Jinn, a Star Wars story.
Do
Yeah.
it.
I'll
Who would
happily
you
have that.
cast? Who would you cast? Do you reckon Liam Neeson could still do a younger Qui-Gon?
Yeah.
We've all seen him in Taken 3 where it took 15 edits to get him over a fence.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I disregard those films. I think he's just a bad father to begin with, so...
Right, and to wrap it up, just to echo what Chris said, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Matt. You've been a great
Thank you
guest
for
to have
having
on.
me. I've loved it. It's nice to be a guest on one, actually.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And after Trilogy of episodes, we're going to be ranking which Matt is the best from An Earful Podcast.
That's what I want. I want to know who's right, because I'm going to listen to the other two, and I want everyone to know I had the hardest job defending these.
Like we said at the beginning, I think whoever needs to defend Rise of Skywalker's got a hard job as well.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
true.
I don't think it's going to get defended. I think they're just going to agree with us. I think
Yeah.
it's just
I'd
gonna
like
be-
to say I'm probably the most prepared, and I'd like to say I know a bit more about Star Wars than them two.
Excellent.
I could be wrong, but I know Lund's defense is Adam Driver, and that's it. So I already know I've won.
So we've started off on a high then. Okay.
Thank you for having me. It's been brilliant.
It's been a pleasure.
No, it's been awesome. So don't forget, you can check out Get Real Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That's simply at Get Real Pod. You can also email us over at getrealpoduk@gmail.com. Let us know any topics. Obviously, over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking Star Wars, so that's going to pretty much fill that up. But once it comes to June, we might get some movie releases and we can talk about something else. Chris, where can people check out the podcast?
You can check out the podcast pretty much everywhere you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, leave us a favorite, leave us a review, 5 stars. Spotify, follow us on there. iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, literally everywhere. And also, we are available on YouTube, where we have a video version of the podcast. We don't have cameras yet, but that is something coming in the future. And yes, thank you very much for listening.
Little other thing, if anyone who's listening on a podcast likes podcasts, go to Podchaser and leave a review for Get Real. It should give it everywhere. Podchaser.com. It just lets you
Well, there we
review
go.
loads of podcasts.
Awesome.
It's
What a
worth
gem.
it. I'll link it to you. But it's brilliant. Go use it.
This is
Brilliant.
why we brought him on, guys.
Cool. You heard him. Go ahead and do it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.